Good morning, Chair. We are now live on YouTube. You can begin.
Okay, good morning. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx Webinar, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx Webinar, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone, and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We also ask that you mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being called. During this time, your camera will be enabled and you will only be visible during your 5 minutes allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance, and the host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect these instructions. Land acknowledgements. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Toronto is now called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of a committee on a decision must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, your address, and your email address, because the Committee of Adjustment, and in the event of an appeal, the Toronto Local Appeal Body will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee rendered here today, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure is as follows. In the virtual world, we go in order. I'll call each item in the order listed in the agenda, after first dealing with some preliminary matters, clearing deferrals from the list before we do that, and we go in order. And making submissions where an application is uncontested, the agent or the applicant may proceed with a presentation if they desire. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to address the committee. The committee may ask questions and then take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. And when you've reached the 5-minute mark, clocks up in the room, you'll be advised to wrap up. When addressing the committee, please start off by clearly stating your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. In a contested matter, when there are other people in attendance to make submissions, the applicant or agent proceeds first and makes their presentation to the committee. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals made at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if being substantially revised, in order to ensure that the revised application is both accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentations, and when all speakers finish, the applicant or agent is given a further opportunity, a further 5 minutes, to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers, or to answer any questions that they had raised in their presentation. That then marks the end of the discussion on the matter, and the matter is then taken into the committee for a decision. Some preliminary matters to take care of before we get started. Firstly, we have the minutes of the November 10th hearing 2 weeks ago today to confirm. If I could have a motion in that to that effect.
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kamoric. Seconded for that.
Just second that.
Thank you. Oh, and today I have a bigger screen, so I seem to be able to see everybody on the same grid. I had a problem last week. I couldn't see everyone in terms of raising hands for motions. Okay, so, oh yes, and are there any declarations of interest of any panel or staff members to declare on the matters before us this morning? Mr. Kamarick, I see your hand is up.
Just on item 4, the next door neighbor is a lifelong acquaintance, so I'd like to recuse myself from that item.
Okay.
Also, Mr. Chair, I'd like to just let you know and let the panel know that I have a Zoom call I have to attend at noon, which is a consult from a doctor regarding my wife my child at a hospital. So
Let's say that's.
I'm hoping to coincide with our break, but in case it doesn't, I just wanted to give you that heads up right now.
Okay, you'll just advise that you're, stepping away and that you'll be marked absent for whatever applications we do. Maybe we'll be on our lunch break if we're lucky.
I'm kind of hoping that's the way it works out.
Okay, anyway.
Thank
okay.
you.
Not a problem. Anyone else have any declarations of interest to declare? No? Okay. Okay, it looks like the next thing we usually do is deal with the deferral request as shown on the consolidated planning memo. In addition to that, which is items 1 and 10 for this morning's agenda, I also noticed, and I assume other members noticed as well, that there is also items 6 and 16, which in the materials or in the additional materials, in the case of number 6, we've been advised by the agents have asked for referrals, so we can perhaps do with those as well in order not to get confused, if that's okay with the staff. Okay, so the first item up on the memo, consolidated planning memo, is conveniently item number 1, and conveniently we have a whole separate email for that. So we have D2 on the planning memo. It's a request by staff in order to have time to review the application, discuss any concerns, obtain any potential changes. The speaker for that application is we have Angela Blanis, the agent for the applicant, and as well as we have 2 neighbors present at 1342 Lawrence Avenue West and 1336 Lawrence Avenue West, registered to speak. And we have other materials. This is an application to legalize and maintain and also to construct certain items as shown on the screen. So it's a deferral request by staff. I assume there's no in terms of the non-compliance and to legalize and maintain, there's no hardship to the applicant, but obviously on their construction. But we're dealing now not on the merits, but on the terms of staff's request for a deferral. Let's hear from Angela Blanis. Or Blanis, I'm sorry about the pronunciation.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Yeah, we're requesting a deferral as we're working with the planning department, and there's a few changes that were made. So we want to make sure everything is accurate. And even in the description, in a couple of the variances were not accurate. So we want to make sure that the application is true, and we're minimizing the changes that have been minimized. So we would appreciate that time.
Okay, as you know, this is not just an application to build a 2-story addition, but to legalize and maintain. There's a massive amount, 18 variances.
Yes.
And there's 3 orders to comply. I know you're just the agent. Since January 2019, they've had 3 orders to comply. And so we're not going to defer this for too long. Is that correct, staff? So we have an available date. Oh, and we have to go online, I guess, to weigh in with the 2 neighbors on the line. I assume, staff, we do have 2 neighbors on the line.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, sorry. The client has been, there's been illnesses and death in the family. So there's been a lot of complications with this application. So.
No, I'm just asking, we have to weigh in with, there was 2 neighbors who
Okay.
address this application, assuming we're going to proceed on the merits today, which
Okay, thank you.
Point to, since we have requests by staff and your consultant agreeable to that. So we just have to weigh in with them and let them know
Okay,
that
thank
this
you.
application is not going to be heard today on the merits. I assume they have, well, I'm sure they want this thing dealt with as well, given you have, this is a legalized and maintained situation. So can we hear from Mahari Manasir?
Thank you, sir. I didn't intend to speak. I just wanted to listen to, so.
Okay, so yeah, this matter is being deferred, so there will be a re-notification. You can do so on another day, either speak or just observe.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
If you're interested, you can stay on the line and watch some other applications. They can be quite entertaining. Only a suggestion. Anyway, just a little bit of humor for the morning, a foggy morning in Toronto. Okay, so the next speaker, Holly Tai at 1336, right next door.
Good morning.
Morning. So as
Okay.
you've been listening, and this matter is not going to be heard today on the merits, you will be re-notified when it's brought back on an agenda.
Yes,
that-
that's correct. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Okay, so we'll be back again at another hearing, hopefully sooner than later. Okay, so members, we've heard from everyone online as required. Can I have a motion to defer?
Danny Bellissimo moves for deferral.
Okay, Danny, thank you. Seconded by,
I'm happy to second that, but after looking at it on Street View, I can understand why the neighbors are anxious to get to this. So
okay, so
it's,
hopefully staff, this matter, I guess staff, we're not going to set this to a specific date at this point to make sure it doesn't get lost in the weeds. Or is there sufficient interest in the addition as well that this matter is not going to just not be brought back on?
So the request is because of planning, they want more time. And I'm not sure what revisions the applicant was referring to in the notice, but instead of doing to the next available hearing date, you can do for a maximum of 3 months if you wish.
Okay, members, if that's,
I'd actually like to make that friendly amendment and put a time frame on it because, it's, I can see why the order to complies, there are 3 of them.
yeah, and we just don't want to make sure it gets just the applicant
Yeah.
doesn't bring it back on and time goes by and it's a year or 2 later. We've seen that happen. When it's an
Exactly.
application to build something, it's at their own peril. They don't want to go ahead. But this is legalized and maintained. So it's different.
So
Thank
I'll make that friendly amendment that there's a time frame on it of 3 months, if that's possible.
Danny Bellissimo agrees.
Okay, thanks. All in favor? It's unanimous. Okay. Next item on the list, proceeding in chronological order, is number 6, item number 6, which is 95 Lake Crescent. We had a revised drawing.
Actually, Chair, there was actually a mistake, so it's actually item 7 that's going to be deferred. There was a mistake on the memo.
Okay. Okay, so it's item number 7. Yeah, I see it's from the agent Guido Constantino, who is conveniently listed as the agent. So yeah, thank you, because that other one is a large application. So it's 26 ORKNEY Crescent, which is again to build a detached dwelling with an attached garage. There's only one variance on that, the front yard setback. But let's hear from Mr. Constantino. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, all.
Can barely hear you. Can you speak up or turn up your volume? Or
how's that? Is that better?
A little bit.
Okay. Good morning, all. So we're actually looking to defer in order to continue our discussions with Urban Forestry in order to satisfy their questions and concerns.
Okay.
And we also want to get a chance to speak to our neighbor number 28, because he had raised a concern, but we haven't had a chance to speak to him. So we want to make sure that we address those 2 items.
Right. Yeah, I saw we have a letter from the neighbor. First of all, he was concerned with the front yard setback, the only variance before on this application, but he was questioning why the side yard situation did not trigger a variance. So you can perhaps work that out, as well as you have a refusal from Urban Forestry. So perhaps you can look into that.
Exactly.
Okay. Members, any questions for Mr. Cosentino? And if not, can I have a
Ready to move for deferral if there are no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo, seconder for that. Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor? Okay, item number 7 is deferred. Okay. Next item on the staff memo is item number 10. Consolidated memo, item number 10, which is 7 Highgate Road. And that's an application for reasons 2, which is the same as the last one, for further time to review and make changes, as well as item 6, which is a request by the applicant. We have that in the applicant's email dated November 16th, so they're in favor. So let's just formally check in with the applicant. I see it's Justin Taylor, who's the homeowner. Welcome, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you. So I would like to request a deferral, please, because the community planning department has requested that we resubmit the drawings, that they can re-look at them and provide an updated report. In the updated drawings, which we've already submitted, we've addressed 2 of the 4 variances, and I think it's going to be to their satisfaction. So it was on their recommendation that we did a deferral. We've improved the design, and hopefully it'll halve the amount of variances that we need to discuss at the next meeting. So I kindly request that we could defer this to the next available meeting opportunity, please.
Okay, so you can deal with staff on that as to get on the next available agenda. This matter is deferred. Members, any questions for Mr. Taylor? Or do I have a motion to defer?
Danny Bellissimo moves for deferral.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Second, I see is Laura Alderson's hand up. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous deferral. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see you again. Be well. Thank you. The last one, I guess, is again a request from the applicant in going through the materials. Is item number 16, 3 NORDALE Crescent. That was a new dwelling with an attached garage to be built. Planning was recommending deferral in their November 14th memo. And so now the agent is requesting a deferral. You see, Mrs. Evangelista is the agent on that application. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owners of 3 NORDALE. We are asking for a deferral today. Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Yes. Yep. We hear you.
Okay. We are asking for a deferral. Planning has some concerns with the application. It's taking a little bit of time because we do have to do a redesign. So we are asking for a deferral today to come back at a later date with a much improved application.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Evangelista or someone ready
No,
to?
Just to clarify, I think that community planning was asking for refusal, not deferral.
Yes, I think did I say that? I thought I said that.
Yeah, I think you said deferral, but
okay, they're looking for
anyway.
refusal in their memo.
So I'm happy to make that motion for deferral as well. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, because this was one of the ones that was not on the community.
Danny Bellissimo seconds the motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. We'll see you back here again. Be well.
Thank you.
Okay, and I guess that's the last one. We do have another one, but that's on this afternoon's agenda. So in that case, we can start hearing our applications. First one is item number 2, and that is 12 2nd Street. It's an application to close a portion.
Mr. Chair, we have a request from the agent for item 20, 4875 Dundas Street West. I guess he's going out of town and he would like to be heard first, but there are 4 speakers registered to speak on that application as well. So it's up to the committee if you want to move it out of order.
Yeah, I'll leave that open to a motion. Anyone willing to accommodate? I guess means we'll be doing one of the longer applications, or at least in terms of the number of people registered to speak off the back when we're all fresh. So just awaiting a motion, either to hear it in order or I just hope the people are on the line didn't figure they're not going to get reached. But I assume they're told to appear at 9:30, but we'll see if, all right, here's a very good question then. Do we have the neighbors staff on the line?
Yes, we do. They're all on the line.
Okay. Okay. So again, if members could opine as to whether they feel, or in terms of a motion or a discussion, whether we should go out of order and hear the last item first.
I think, Don, did you want to say something, or you had your hand up?
I was just prepared to make a motion, but were you, Stan, or?
Sure, we'll get ready to second it for you, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we haven't heard what, hold on a sec. We haven't heard what his motion is yet. Whether to
Okay,
hear it.
here's my motion. Here's my motion that we hear application number 20 to accommodate the agent's time schedule, with apologies to those between application numbers 2 and 19.
Okay. So
My concern is this might set a precedent.
Yeah, Sam, I assume that was the motion you were expecting from Donald?
That's what I was assuming, yes.
Okay, good. Okay.
And I do have a concern. I just want to say that I have a concern that it might set a precedent for the future. That's all.
Yeah, yeah, people can, make up excuses, but some of the, especially among the speakers who are regulars here, they're not, I don't expect that is going to happen, but you're right. So anyway, let's make a motion and let's vote on that motion. We have the motion that's been seconded. All in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-1, and let's hear from, I guess then we can scroll over in our agendas to item number 20. And it is 4875 Dundas Street West. It's to convert the existing locker room, or a existing locker room on the main floor, into one additional unit. There are two variances with a copy of site-specific zoning bylaw, an applicant's email about revisions, supporting material, which is a justification for the parking variance. Perhaps we can get that on the board while the applicant is speaking. We have planning conditions of approval regarding a landscape plan that they'd like, and we have opposition to the conversion, and as well as some concerns. The sign was not posted in a prominent place to be visible to tenants. So we'll hear about that. The speakers, again, on this application, the applicant is Musa Ayeda, the agent for the applicant, as well as we have, looks like 4 tenants in the building, one of which represents one other tenant. So welcome, Musa.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, committee. I am the applicant and representing the building management owner. In regards to this application, we're actually using the existing locker at the first floor.
First of all, can you speak a little slower and a little louder? I'm having trouble following you. I don't know if anybody else is.
Is it better this way?
A little louder and a little slower. Thank you. Go ahead.
So I was saying that we are converting the existing ground floor locker and storage room into one bedroom. Because of this, we added an exterior covered bicycle shed, and also we added an exterior outdoor amenity. It's a concrete pavement with outdoor garden metal chairs. We also have 3 bicycle parking. The shortage and the issue with our application is we are shortage with 1 parking spot.
Right. I know. Yeah, I see that there's no other variance other than the vehicle parking issue. There's no with respect to the conversion. Has there been a staff review of this application, or did you proceed by waiver? There's no other variances identified.
Correct.
For this application.
It's the only one. Yeah.
You're entitled to this additional unit under the zoning. That's not an issue here. Just want to clarify.
Mr. Chair, I believe there's 2 variances.
Okay, right. The parking space and as well the proposed average dwelling size of the unit 1.14. So they're over. You're right. Thank you for pointing out that. Yeah, I thought it was a parking spot. It's the average dwelling unit per 58.06 meters of the lot.
That's
Sir,
correct.
if you could perhaps explain that variance and why it's reasonable. Thank you, Stan, for pointing that out. That's
actually
a very
the calculation.
It's hard to sort of understand. Can you perhaps explain what that variance is? And
Actually, because we are adding that suite, the overall number of a suite over the lot area, increase that value, which is more than what the zoning bylaw allows. But the lot is an existing, so there is no solution to solve this, and that's why we carry it to you, the committee.
yeah, it's just the overage in terms of, so it was sort of like almost like a coverage. Usually what you see in these situations, which is, I guess you have the site-specific zoning bylaw, is that they say the unit size shall be no less than whatever, that it's an efficiency on the average size of units. And meanwhile, with condos now being so small, I don't think that's ever an issue. So thank you. So you do have the two variances. What about, I guess we'll wait to hear from the neighbors and you can respond to what their concerns are. But again, let's hear from them. So is there anything you'd like to add? I sort of jumped in there. We finished your presentation.
I spoke to the property management, and we received I saw one letter, at least objection letter, in regards to the bicycle. We provided an exterior covered outdoor bicycle, and that's what they offer. If something else needed, we can hear from them. If there is something that we didn't receive it in writing, we can hear them. And I hope that I will have answer for them.
Great. So yeah, to clarify, I did see one of the letters, a concern that the bike storage room used to be used for bicycle parking before the current manager took over management of the building. But there is bicycle parking being provided. That is not a variance, and there is now a bicycle provision requirement, and you say you comply with that. You are providing area for the tenants to park their bicycles, correct?
Correct. Yes, and it's covered.
And it's covered. Okay, it's outside, but it's covered. It's not inside.
Yes.
Okay. So does anyone have any questions?
Just a quick question of the applicant. Are you aware of the community planning conditions, the two conditions?
They asked us for one question, which is about the landscape, and that's what I was aware about it. I worked with them around the bicycle parking to provide a shed and to relocate it at the back, and I did that and submit to the planning, and they were okay with that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I also forgot to mention in the additional materials we received yesterday, there is a memo from transportation, and they have no objection to this application. Okay, so in that case, let's hear. We have three neighbors on the line. The first one is Janice Taylor. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. I am a resident. It's an apartment building. It's 56 apartments. It's a community. It's small enough to actually be a community where people know each other in the building. And although I am not one of those who are affected by losing my storage facility, there are others who will be losing that. And there's been no conversation with the owners. I'm sure they're very busy, but there's been no conversation with the owners in regards to providing that information so people can plan and prepare compensation. A number of them are elderly, so it is going to impact. The other question that I have, and it's because I part of it is I'm here to get information because I just don't have it. I also wonder whether or not the building of the one-bedroom apartment, which is going to take away all those storage places, but I'm also wondering whether it's going to impact the hallway where the mail room is, whether it's going to impact the laundry facilities, whether indeed there's a possibility that we will lose our laundry facilities. So those are questions I just don't have answers to, and those things greatly impact us. And as well for parking, I just wonder if someone has a car that's moving in, and most people, I wouldn't say most people, but lots of people still have vehicles that they're using. And I'm wondering where that person is going to park their car, if indeed they have a car. Most people in the building do have vehicles and also have parking units. So I'm wondering what an answer to that question too. We have We're losing our visitor parking spots. And so I'm really wondering how that's going to impact and encroach on the residents' amenities. That's what my concern is, and really to get the information and try to work together with the owner around lots of these things. And I'm sure we can find a way to rectify.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Taylor. This isn't a charrette. This is like a hearing for us. So the decision is going to be made today. Obviously, if you outside of the hearing, it'd be great if you could work with the building, but just to clarify, this is not a go back and forth. And again, I don't know what rights you or any other tenants have under the landlord-tenant act for loss of amenity space or whatever else, but that's really not before us today. Today is we're dealing only with the planning issues. So just to let you know that.
Can I speak to that if I could?
Sure.
Yes, I totally understand what the parameters here are here today, but I'm also wanting to say how it is, how these things are impacting renters, so that, you know, we keep that alive in the public. You may not be able to defer for these issues, but it is these changes that are happening for renters are greatly impacting. And I understand where we can go in terms of landlord and tenant act around compensation for those things that we are paying for or that are part of our lease and that have been taken away without any discussion.
Yes. Okay. So just wanted to clarify that, but all the best to you in dealing with the building management. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Taylor? Or if not, we'll go on to the next speaker. Okay. Next speaker is Patricia Ostrowski.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. So, okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Perfect. Loud and clear.
Thank you. I'm a tenant in the building for almost 40 years. This locker room is my locker room. The locker room is shared by 10 families. I'm one of them. And I've enjoyed my locker for, as I say, almost 40 years of my tenancy. The building owner has not even made themselves available to us. We don't even have a contact number or name. This is, the owner is Forest Gate Living, and the tenants have absolutely no way to contact the owner. The property management company is Sterling Caramar. The only person that I've been able to be in communications with is the superintendent, and she reports to me that the property manager, her boss, is either been uninformed himself by Forest Gate as to what's going on. Consequently, the tenants are not being told anything. I have to regard this, please forgive my phraseology here, but I have to regard this as a hostile, if not aggressive act against the tenants. And I'll tell you why, because recently the building owner has undertaken other renovations in the building. And one of the things that they did arbitrarily was to destroy all the fire suppression walls on floors 2 to 10 without any permits, without any approval at all. So their posture is to just do whatever they want. I'm actually pleased that there's a submission that I can respond to about this locker room. The first thing is that I'm opposed because I am not being compensated. Where will I have my locker room if they're going to tear this locker room apart? The other thing is the drawings themselves. Mr. Chairman, I don't know to what extent these drawings have to be completed before they're submitted to your committee. I do remember reading here on the application that the information must be truthful, and I'm finding all kinds of discrepancies with the engineer's drawings. I myself worked in mechanical engineering for 30 years, and the drawings that I'm looking at now, I'm sorry, I don't have a computer, so I could refer you all to one of the PDFs if you need, because I've printed out everything. So I'm looking at hard copies here. And I can point out, you know, discrepancies like north is not even in the building north, the true north is not being represented properly on the drawings. The engineer's steel has not even been applied to the drawing title blocks. Also, most importantly, is that there is a dimension that shows the intended suite to be from the inside wall of the outside of the building, the inside wall to the end of that suite, they promote as 21 feet. Well, I went down and measured that myself twice, and we got a measurement of 18 feet 7 inches. So what this means is that there is a load-bearing wall that separates the locker room area from the laundry room, which is on the other side of that wall. And this indicates to me that there's no other way to build this suite other than to destroy a load-bearing wall. And just to clarify in lay terms, a load-bearing wall is a wall that supports the building structure above it. So we've got 9 floors above that load-bearing wall that will lose its support.
Again, ma'am, I've been very patient, but we're not really dealing with that issue. I assume before anything is done, the applicant has to go through, have engineers approving what they've done. So please, if you can have some time left, if you can stick to the matters before us, which is planning issues. I understand, and there may be some measurement, you know, the thickness of the wall, but we really, question is your issues you pointed out, the deficiencies with the drawing, is that germane to what's being requested here? You know, city planning goes through these drawings, and we'll have the applicant comment, but please, if you can go back.
Hello?
Sorry. I muted myself by mistake. So if you can just continue, but please, we need to hear sort of planning issues. So I can maybe point you in the right direction. So there are, you saying this locker room services 10 of the 56 tenants. So there are, I assume, other locker rooms on other floors. Are those in the basement or on each of the upper floors? Where are those other locker rooms? Or does everyone have locker rooms? Are there other locker rooms, and where are they?
Am I still on the air?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Responding to your question, we have, I believe, 3 or 4 other locker rooms in the basement. Now, the problem is there's been a lot of tenants leaving the building, moving out, and not all of them have taken their belongings. Some of them have abandoned their belongings. And the superintendent right now is having a difficult time in getting responses from other tenants as to, you know, which is your locker room. So they don't even know how many lockers they have available, if they have any. All I know is that my locker room is the locker room that's going to be affected by the intended change. And this would leave us and 9 other families with no locker that we've enjoyed with our rent, with our lease all these years. So I'm worried about losing a valuable service that I've enjoyed. I'm also disabled. So the other locker rooms are on the basement. This one's on the main floor, which has been much easier for me. That's my biggest concern. And also that, as Ms. Taylor said earlier, that this proposed renovation will result in our laundry room being made smaller. So those are the big concerns for me. And I do know that this will also cause a reduction in the area where we check our mail. There's a little postal area where we have all the mailboxes. And
yeah, we'll be hearing from the applicant and on the response. Ms. Taylor mentioned that as well, how the other areas of the common areas are being affected. And like I said, whether, you know, I don't know if your lease provided from 40 years ago, if you have a lease that the locker was included or not, those are issues for the landlord and tenant board or for negotiation with the landlord. If they're not really germane before us in this case, there is also the issue that, you know, as you know, the city is desperate for new housing. So this does add an additional unit. So there is some positives, and typically they're in the basement. This one's actually on the main floor. We often see where they take a basement laundry room and they convert it to suites. So anyway, any questions for Mrs. Ostrowski or Ms. Ostrowski, or can we move on to the next speaker? Long morning ahead of us. Okay, if no questions, we'll move to the next speaker, Azita Reza Yazdi.
Hello, hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Azita. I'm a tenant of 4875. So the reason that I'm here, just I want to mention, as Miss Taylor and Miss Patricia, they mentioned, I agree to turn that part of the facility. Hello, sorry. That part of the facility to the extra unit, because since I moved to the building in 2009, it was provided to me to as a using for parking, putting my bike over there. So, and again, I was enjoying until Starlight Karma, they took over and they changed the lock without any, again, information, and they turned the key lock to the fob and they refused to give me the fob. So then they forced us, actually, by acting like that, to put our bicycle outside without having any proper bicycle parking spot that is still you can come and see. Then my bike was stolen. I had to purchase again 3 other bike for myself, husband and child, and then we were putting in an underground parking. Then they says you can't, it's against fire code. So apparently they forced us to not having the bike because outside it wasn't any spots, any safe spots available, and then underground it was against law. So then my concern is why you are taking things that it was offering to us, it was provided for us. That's the condition, terms and condition. When I get into the building, that was the facility that I had. It was provided to me when I get into the building. And then you just coming easily taking that part of the agreement with any notice, without doing any negotiation. It's not fair.
Thank you, ma'am.
You are so welcome.
Okay, any questions for the speaker? Or if not, we'll hear from the last speaker on the line. Anna, good luck.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Hi.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Anna. Please go ahead.
Okay, I've listened to my 3 previous tenants, so I can only add this. The locker room that we are talking about is on the main floor. Our building is old and we have locker rooms in the basement. However, the elevator doesn't go to the basement. I'm speaking for myself, but I'm also speaking for a lady who is in the hospital currently, so she cannot speak for herself now, but she has a locker in that room. She's an elderly woman, and even if her locker is moved to the basement, it's very difficult, if impossible, to go down the stairs and access her locker. That's one thing. 2, speaking to the fact about all the tenants and if they had lockers and parking spaces, they did. One of them tenants are my parents, but the other lady, the lady in 901, also had a parking, and the older landlord, when she gave up her parking, the landlord compensated by decreasing her rent. Now, her locker was taken away from her without her knowledge with the previous superintendent, but with the new landlord. And she was surprised to find out that she doesn't have a locker, and also her motorbike or whatever she had stored, she never used, but she had it since 1979, just disappeared. And she doesn't know where it is. She was asking, and she never got a response. So this is the 2 concerns that I could add to that report.
Okay.
So we don't know if the lockers will be replaced, and if they are replaced with the basement lockers, it's not accessible to some people because of disability or mobility issues.
Thank you. So we've established that there's no elevator going down to the basement, which makes the other access to the other lockers. There's certainly people who don't have, we're on the main floor. We'll hear back maybe from, we're going to go back to Mr. Ayade now for his rebuttal, and maybe if he can also answer the question if he knows what's the situation with the people who had lockers, and and what about, are they getting other lockers in the basement, or they're just not getting lockers? And like I said, and I'll say it again for the people on the line who've called in, whatever rights you have under the landlord-tenant legislation is not before us today, but it certainly doesn't diminish your rights to proceed or to pursue any rights you may have under that legislation. Okay, Mr. Ayada, back to you, sir. Please respond to the concerns raised and the questions I have.
Sure. So actually the application as is and the suite location all will be designed as per the OBC code. We will not affect the mailboxes. We will not affect the laundry as part of the drawings that we submitted. The building has 4 storage and locker spaces at the basement. And also the issue that we have from for the storage from the landlord to provide a locker, a bicycle parking outside. Also, the building has recently provided a renovation for the corridor areas and for all the around the elevators and public corridors. That's what I can speak about from the landlord and the property management. But as you see, our application is just deficient with 1 parking spot that we are seeking approval for.
Okay, so again, the bicycles, whatever again, it doesn't show up as a variance here. You have provided, we've heard that, I don't know if the area is secure. People have said their bicycles were stolen and there was a motorbike that went missing, or that was maybe in the basement. So there is other issues, and there are other improvements being contemplated for the common areas.
The bicycle parking will be at the back of the building, and it's a lock. There is a lock, and it's covered. So at the back of the building, it's more secure than the front. Initially, we had it at the front of the building. The planning asked us to move it at the back and cover it with a shed for the convenience of the tenants. So that's what the landlord was able to provide.
Okay. So thank you. Oh yeah, we didn't. So are these people? That was people. I don't know. They are a concern that are these 10 people that are going to be losing their lockers on the main floor, are they going to, whether they're going to be offered that? I don't know if you know that or can answer that, but it seems there's some anxiety from these people who aren't going to have lockers. What's the intention or
For the storage spaces, I guess the best way is that they speak to the management or the landlord-tenant board, because that spaces, as I understood from the property management, is not mandatory in them to provide every single, even with the parking as well. The car parking is not mandatory for them to provide it with the rental. So I'm sure that they can seek the help from the property management or the tenant landlord board.
And again, I don't know, and we did not before us today, whether all these people have an entitlement under their lease, either as specified or by operation of law over 40 years. That is not before us today, whether the issues of what the rights and obligations are of the 2 parties in that regard. Okay, this is just to add 1 locker, 1 additional unit on the main floor, in this case, not in the basement. And we've been advised that this unit will be built to code and add a unit to the available stock in the city. Any questions? Mr. Kumaric, thank you.
I have 2 questions for the applicant. One is how many bicycle parking spaces are being provided? And what's the security going to be provided? Is this a locked area, or can anyone just walk in into the shed?
We provided the 3 ring types, which means it will accommodate minimum 6 bicycles, and it's at the back of the building. You know, all these buildings, they have security cameras around them, and we believe it's a secure place. Once you lock the bicycle and you have a covered shed, that should give us security for the tenant.
Okay, but you haven't answered the question. Is the shed going to be locked, or can anyone enter it?
No, it will not be locked. It will be just covered from the top. The sides will be open.
So anyone, including a bicycle thief, could actually just enter it?
Correct.
You also said it provides 6. There's 56 units in this building, soon to be 57 if you get approval. is that sufficient parking under the like I'm saying, we don't see a variance here for bicycle parking, and bicycle parking for both visitors and for residents is now part of what people have to do in buildings. So the question is, oh yes, planning actually mentions proposed bicycles, so it looks like maybe someone has looked at that, and we don't
Yes.
have any bicycle variances, which I don't understand, because how can 6 bicycle spots be enough for 56 units? I don't know if staff wants to comment on that. Barb?
The bicycle requirements would typically be for any new development. So because this is an older building, the bylaw for that site may not require it at this point.
Okay, thanks for weighing in on that. I wasn't aware. I don't know if others were. Okay, any other questions? Or Stan, will you have your answers, or at least Mr. The applicant has had an opportunity to respond to your question, or would you like to continue, Mr. Ayade? Sir, please continue, or if not, we'll take it into committee. Are you finished your rebuttal, sir?
No, for me, all the questions from the tenant that I see related to the storage space, as I said, it can be taken to the landlord and tenant board. As a consultant, we don't involve in this conversation, but I will carry this message as well to our client for sure, and then the tenants can also follow up from their side.
Yeah, so if you maybe the neighbors can read the planning report if they haven't at their leisure. It does deal with specifically bicycle parking in that, and so they brought their mind to that, and they've actually asked for a condition respect to that. So they have asked for a condition. Okay, any other questions for the agent? Mr. Ayade, or someone ready for a motion? Laura, I don't know if I saw you put your hand up or not. Okay. Stan, Mr. Kumar?
Yeah, I'm ready for a motion. But before I do that, I'm a little disappointed with the planning conditions. I would have liked to have seen a specific number parking spaces and something more than 3 bicycle rings, which I feel it's insufficient. I think given the context, it and the desirability to get more living space in Toronto, I believe it's a desirable and minor application. And from that perspective, I would like to move approval, subject to the planning conditions, which also include I believe a requirement for a deposit to ensure that the owner complies with the original condition. Or letter of credit, I believe it is.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Mr. Kumar, for your motion. Seconder for Mr. Kumar's motion. Is there no seconder for Mr. Kumar's motion, in which case the motion fails? In which case I need a new motion. Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, share Mr. Komorik's view that it is good to increase the number of available housing units in Toronto. We're all aware of that. However, I was really strongly influenced by the presentations made by the tenants. And I believe that the loss of the locker room is obviously very significant to them. Whether they have an entitlement to it legally in their leases, we don't know, but it's certainly something that they've had available to them for, in some cases that we heard about, for many, many years. So when I think about that, and I think about the 4 tests, the variance requested is minor, obviously, or not obviously, but in my opinion, numerically, The variances requested are minor. But related to the impact on tenants, I don't see that these variances are minor. I also don't believe test number 2 that the proposal is desirable for the appropriate development or use of the building. So on grounds of non-compliance with 4 tests under the Planning Act, I move refusal.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor, for that motion. Do I have a seconder?
Danny Bellissimo seconds the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, Mr. Kamerick, you're now in favor? Okay, I'm opposed, and I'll tell you why I'm opposed, just briefly, because we spent some time on this. First of all, a lot of these conversions we see are in the basement. This is on the main floor. I get a lot of brownie points for that one. And in view of the current situation in the city, this is going to be an appropriate unit compared to, we may have comments about the ones that are being stuck in the basement and conversion in the basement. This is on the main floor. We've heard a lot from 3 people who've taken the time to come here, but my position is those issues, which are certainly allegations and not proven in certain ways, but and I assume they're all true, but I believe that they have redress, which I tried to steer under the Landlord Tenant Act, and the applicant has certain rights to do that without us knowing anything about what the leases provide, or if they don't, or operational law. So anyway, the motion carries 4-1. The application is refused. Thank you for all the speakers, and we'll move on, I guess, back up to the top of the application to item number 2, 12 2nd Street. Give us a second to find our spot. And this is an application to enclose a portion of the existing front porch. I think I said that about 45 minutes ago, and then I was advised about the request. I hope the applicant is happy that we were able to accommodate his request. So item number 2 is a simple application, 1 variance, the front yard setback. We have photos, a planning report for information, and 3 letters of support. Urban Forestry looking for condition number 1. 1 speaker, Jody Black, the owner of the property. Sorry, Jody Buck. Jody Buck.
That's okay. Good morning.
Sorry. Welcome.
Thank you. Should I talk about the project quickly?
I don't believe we need a full
Okay.
presentation for you. It's just that you're doing enclosing the porch, and it triggers a technical variance, I guess, because the porch is now included in the.
Correct. Yeah, we're working within the existing porch footprint, so we're not going beyond it.
And we do have a positive report from planning. I'm surprised, but we did get a planning report from them, so they're okay with that. And we have neighbors on site. Let's just see if members have any questions for you, or if someone's ready to weigh in with the motion.
If no one has any, go ahead, Danny.
Oh, sorry. Is the applicant aware of the condition by forestry?
I did see that. I mean, there's a very small newly planted tree out front that's less than 30 centimeters, but we'll take a look at what the condition is.
Because I was looking at the drawing, I didn't see how it impacted, but I just wanted to know.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either. It's a tree that's less than a year old. We don't want to lose the tree, so we'll protect the tree, but it shouldn't get damaged by this.
Okay. I'll make a motion regarding that if there are no further questions. Laura, you have a question?
No, I was going to make the motion, but you go ahead.
This is a very typical architectural style. The applicant has shown us that many homes have the same architectural feature in the front and enclosed porch. So I'd like to move for approval of the variance of minor in nature, conditional on the forestry F1.
And I'll
Okay,
second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Alderson, for seconding that. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay. Okay, item number 3 is 33 21st Street. And the application is to construct a 2nd-story rear platform. A previous committee of a job application decision approved variances relating to floor space, index, side yard setback, parking space, width, driveway width, dwelling height, front and rear exterior main wall height. And now There's one variance being the size of this proposed second-story addition at 4 square meters to 25.8. We have one speaker, Mark Marino, the agent for the applicant, and all we have is a planning condition. They would like to see a 1.5 meter privacy screen on the north and south sides of the proposed platform. Welcome, Mr. Marino.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I am representing the property owner, and yes, Mr. Chairman, we are before the committee to seek a relief to zoning bylaw to maintain a rear yard platform. The maximum platform area is 4 meters squared, and we're proposing 25.8 meters squared. Mr. Chairman, I would like to point out the following. We have submitted a ZAP application under number 22-123721. I'd also like to point out, Mr. Chairman, that the proposed platform is at the main floor level, not the second floor level. I think that's very important. And it's my understanding there are no objection from neighbors. And it's also my understanding that there's no objection from city staff. In my opinion, it meets the floor planning test, and I'd be pleased to answer any of your questions.
Okay, and Stan, your client is fine with the planning condition that I stated at the outset.
Yes, we are, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for Mr. Marino? Is someone ready for a motion?
Just a quick question. I'm actually a little confused about the why planning wants privacy screens on both sides. To the south of your property is a school property, is it not?
Yes, that is correct. It is a school property.
Just trying to understand, who are they trying to get privacy from there?
I didn't have any conversations with city staff with respect to that, but you are correct. It is, it does, but
It's a playground.
yeah, yes.
Okay.
But but we don't have a problem with providing that privacy if.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Danny Bellissimo here, didn't understand you. So you're okay with the recommendation by planning then, as they put it forth? Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, if there are no further questions from other members, I find that the platform is off the kitchen. It's very useful to the applicant and doesn't hurt and harm any of the neighbors. There's no objection here, so I'd like to move for approval. I found the variances are minor in nature. Condition on the planning recommendation that the owner provide a 1.5 meter privacy screen on north and south side of the rear yard deck.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. We have a seconder for that, please.
I'll second that motion.
Stan had his hand up first, so I'll take it from Stan. No offense. All in favor? Unanimous approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, the next application is item number 4. It's the one that Mr. Comerica has declared a conflict, and so you can go take a break. Thank you. And this is an application to construct a second-story rear addition above the existing dwelling and a second-story rear platform, a one-story rear addition, and a one-story front addition with a new covered front porch. A previous Committee of Adjustment application approved variances relating to gross floor area, rear yard setback, encroachment into the rear yard height, and their that was November 18, 2010. We have the applicant's revision. This is revised November the 8th, but we have a copy of the revisions email from the applicant. We have, there wasn't any yellow highlighted, but I guess it was a revised drawing that didn't affect the variances. So we have a revised zoning notice, revised plans, a revised cover letter dated November 7th, supporting material, copy of the previous decision, planning and transportation and parking update letter from the applicant. I have no objection from TRCA. Transportation has a couple of conditions of approval, but no concerns. An arborist report, and we have a planning report mostly for information on this application. We have one speaker and one neighbor. Speaker is Richard Wengel, agent for the applicant. Welcome, Mr. Wengel.
Morning, Mr. Chair. Richard Wengel, 102 Avenue Road.
Okay, perhaps we can get your supporting material up on the board while you make your presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. If we can just pull up our first page from our presentation material, and you'll see we did get, this is a proposal, again, that we had actually received a permit in 2016, and our clients had decided not to go forward at the time with the construction, and then have just decided now that they want to, now's the time to do it. So upon looking at our zoning application and our previous committee application that was approved, we realized that the new bylaw had come into effect and triggered some additional variances based on what we were doing from before. There is a letter from a neighbor at number 76 that had.
Sorry, can I just interrupt?
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Wengel. I just read out the materials that we have on application number 5. So my bad.
Yeah.
If I can, this is to no one. Yeah, it's for a 2-story addition, and we have a supporting material, arborist report, 2 letters of support from 74 and 38, 1 letter of opposition from 76. So my bad. I was reading item number 5. No one pointed that out.
No worries.
Okay, go ahead. Restart the clock.
So we actually had approval in 2014 with a permit issued in 2016. And since the construction hadn't taken place, our permit expired. We reapplied, had to get a new zoning notice. And in addition, our clients had changed some of the scale of their project, reduced some of their FSI, and then actually added a front porch. As you're aware, there is a letter from number 76, VALECREST, and asking for the item number 8, which pertains to a 2nd-story rear platform. We've agreed to remove that and delete that from our request. It would no longer need that. And we sent a message. We left a message with the neighbor saying that we would eliminate that should the committee deem that to be appropriate, and we'd be happy to do that. And if I could just ask if we can just go to the 2nd page of our presentation. I'll be quick. So this is just a little tablet that shows what has happened. In blue are new variances that are triggered under the new bylaw. And the red is another, this is previously, numbers that are previously approved but are now greater, and green are less than or equal to what was approved. So our FSI has actually come down a little bit, but our coverage has gone up just slightly, and our front yard setback is triggered. And that's, if I can ask you just to go to page number 4, and there'll be a site plan, and it'll be a lot clearer to see what we're actually asking for. So what is in green on the site plan was previously approved, and what our clients have requested is a front porch extension that's covered with a vestibule. That's in blue. So those blue notes have triggered the new variances, in addition to some new ones that have come up from the change of the bylaw. And then I can just show you on page number 5, just the elevation of the house. Again, it's an existing house that we are renovating. Next page, please. And you'll see there's a front porch just in the middle with a bay window to the left of it. And that's essentially it. So it's essentially the same project, a little less FSI on the project, but a little more coverage due to the front porch that encroaches a little bit into the front yard setback because of the curving nature of the street. We believe it passes the Ford test. Planning had no issues with this, and we're hoping that our neighbor at number 76 is satisfied that we are able to eliminate variance number 8 that pertains to the balcony that we will now be happy to remove. And I'm able to answer any questions.
Okay, very, very neighborly of you to remove that balcony as you know, requested by the neighbor in their letter. So let's hear from their agent is on the line, Mr. Berezowski. Welcome, sir.
The neighbor.
Oh, sorry. Did anyone have? I'm sorry. We'll just hang on, Mr. Berezowski. Did anyone have any questions for Mr. Wengel?
Danny Bellissimo, quick question. You're aware of the forestry conditions on this application?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you're okay with those?
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Okay. Back to Mr. Berezowski, sir.
Yes. Yes,
You're
I
the
am.
agent for the neighbor next door at 76?
Yes. Well, actually, I am the neighbor at 76.
Okay.
And I had submitted the letter of objection, and I had registered to speak before they removed that variance number 8. And by removing it, I'm happy. Just as a matter of education, that was not a new, it's not a request for something that I need, but it is actually referring back to the old preservative bylaw 1988-194 that the inside circle on VALECREST isn't allowed to have backyard decks because they look into all the other properties. So I thank you for removing that, Mr. Wengel, and I'm happy.
Yes. So yeah, I do see in your letter, it says it opens the door for all future applications on the inner circle, and the inner circle obviously would.
Yeah.
If it's a circle rather than a straight line, there is more the opportunity for overlook. So, and again, your name is Janek Berezowski.
That's okay.
So that's your last name. I dropped the first part. Okay. So, any questions for the neighbor? And if not, is someone ready for a motion? I assume we don't need a Bengal.
For a motion, if there are no further questions.
Thank you.
Sorry, and is this to confirm the applicant has deleted variance number 8 for the rear platform?
Yes, I was going to move the deletion of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Although there are many variances, I find this proposal a very large house, and the variances are minor in nature considering the size of the proposal. So I'd like to move approval of variances 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9. So I'm not moving for an 8, and it's conditional forestry 1 and 2. I believe there's only 2 conditions, forestry 1 and 2.
Thank you, Mr. Belismo, for that motion. I see Laura Alderson's hands up to second that. Any comment?
No.
Okay, in favor? I don't see Mr. Taylor. You opposed? You're in favor. Okay, so the motion carries with 4-0 because we have Mr. Comeric is out of the room. So you have your approval, Mr. Wengel. Thank you for that. And we can move on to item number 5. And first of all, I have to apologize. I'll introduce this item. So I read out the list on the last one. I guess I was still a bit shell-shocked from the decision on item number 20. So item number 5, to reintroduce it, an application to construct a new 3-story stacked townhouse building with 9 residential units, and a previous committee of adjustment application approved variances relating to parking. That was November 18, 2010, as I said. We have on this application we have a revision, revised sheet dated November the 8th. So there were 14 variances. 14 has been deleted, so we now have 13 variances. None of those have been revised. We have the applicant's revisions email. We have the revised zoning notice, revised plans, revised cover letter dated November 7th. We have the supporting material, including the new, which I have a question about the second picture depth at the time. I'll raise that. We have a previous decision, transportation and parking update letter. TRCA has no objection. Transportation has 3 conditions of approval. We have an arborist report and a planning report for information. The speaker on this application is Paulina Bam, the architect and planner for the project. It looks like we also have an engineer and a secondary speaker on the line as well. So it looks like everyone's on the same team. We don't have any neighbors in opposition present to speak. We don't have any urban forestry. So I guess Paulina Bam is the speaker.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Yes, can you please speak up? I can barely hear you.
Oh, how's this?
Much better.
Okay, great. Good morning. As mentioned, I'm Paulina Bam, Senior Planner with SVN Architects and Planners, acting as agent on behalf of the owner of 2110 Keele Street. My address on file is 110 Adelaide Street East in Toronto. While I am the planner, yep.
Just we can get the presentation up on the board, perhaps. Well, go ahead.
Sure. Yes. Yes. So that would be the November 23 exhibits. Yes, so I'm also joined today, as mentioned, by Elise Snyder, the project architect, and transportation consultant, Martin Chan. As mentioned, we are seeking the approval of 13 variances which are needed to permit a residential infill development on an apartment neighborhood site, which currently contains a 9-story apartment building. So I'm happy to provide an overview of the file. We can go directly into questions, given that there's no public opposition and receipt of supportive and non-objective comment letters, but I'm happy to run through the presentation also.
Okay, members, would you like a presentation on this application?
Danny Bellissimo would like to move, go ahead with this proposal, so I don't need a presentation.
Oh, yeah, okay, and then I just want one question. The second photo, what, can you pull up the second photo? The first photo, beautiful looking project.
Yes.
But the second picture, I was just, when I went through it, what is that? What's that? Is that just some perspective that makes it look like it's very, no
Yep.
depth? No depth.
Yeah. I mean, that is showing the proposed share street that we are proposing to get reinstated from a currently closed off driveway. So it's called a WUNRF, a shared pedestrian vehicular access. And that is very beautiful, but that is part of our proposal. That is a proposed outdoor amenity area. That is also going to double as long-term bicycle storage. There's some hybrid boxes going to be provided that will also act as planters next to the proposed development.
No, there's one building or two buildings?
One proposed building, but it's an infill development, so it's just
I'm just looking at picture one and picture two. Picture two that's up on the board. What it looks
Oh,
like.
that is a shaded pergola. Yeah, that's not a building.
No, the building portion.
Michael, that's the shape of the building. It's an arrowhead building, so that's a pointed part of the building. If you look at the site.
So it's the other side.
That's right.
Elevation. Okay, so the building sort of narrows from the
Yeah, it's a
interior side elevation. Other picture. Okay, thank you, Danny, for that.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions? Or I guess we're not going to have a presentation. Someone ready to make a motion, or are there any other questions?
Yes, Danny Bellissimo was ready to make for a motion. I'll do a little presentation as well. I mean, I looked at this drawing very carefully. This is a wonderful proposal. It's very typical of low-rise townhouses beside or near apartment buildings, and this is an existing apartment building. And this proposal is also next to a large open space. I don't know if that's called a ravine, but that's what we see here on the location map. So I'm glad to move for approval. I find the variances are minor in nature. And there are no conditions. Sorry, was there a condition of transportation? Just no. Why do I have transportation?
Transportation has 3 conditions.
Yes, sorry, transportation does have 3 conditions. Thanks for clarifying that. So I'd like to move for approval. I believe the variances are 1 to 13, and 14 is now eliminated from the previous waiver. So I'd like to move for variances 1 to 13 inclusive. Thank you. Condition on for the transportation services.
Thank you. Seconder for that motion, Ms. Alderson, thank you.
I'm happy to second that. I think it's a great proposal.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you to Polina and to your team. Okay, next application is item number 6. We have revised drawings, 95 Lake Crescent. This is the one that I thought we were having deferred. It turned out to be number 7. It was an error on the note on the how it was bookmarked. So again, we have revised plans. If this is for a detached dwelling with an attached garage. There were 4 variances. There are now 3. One of that has been revised. The FSI has been revised from 0.99 to 0.69. They've removed the roofie projection variance. We have revised plans, revised waiver, a cover letter dated November 10th, supporting material. Transportation, this is when I thought it was on the other one. Transportation is requesting the deferral of this application. So we'll deal with that at the outset to allow the applicant an opportunity to revise their redevelop their proposal and address certain matters set out in the memo. And we have a letter of objection from 93 next door. Urban Forestry is looking for condition number 3. And again, we have that deferral request from transportation. Let's hear from the speakers on this. We have Layla Agabani, the agent for the applicant, and as well, we then have the neighbors from 97 to 93 on both sides registered to speak as well. So let's turn it over to Ms. Agabani.
Good morning, Chair. It's actually going to be David Eagleman speaking on this matter, and the neighbor at 97 Lake Crescent, Chu Tran is no longer on the line.
Okay, so sorry, we have a new speaker for as an agent. Who's that?
Yes, it's going to be David Eagleman.
David Eagleman. Okay. Okay, welcome, David. Can you please let's address at the outset the deferral request from transportation?
Yes, good morning, Sir Chair and committee members. David Eagleman, planner here on behalf of the owners.
Yeah, a little louder, please, David.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. I want to make sure.
Okay, great. I'm having some issues with my microphone this morning. So, excuse me. We have revised the plans to address transportation's comments. Their most concerning comment that they made within their report was in regards to the fact that we were proposing the dwelling within a shared right-of-way that is shared with the neighbor at 93 Lake Crescent. However, the revised plans that have been submitted to the committee along with the revised zoning waiver reflect a greater setback on the side with the right-of-way so that the building is entirely outside of the right-of-way and it is not encroaching. The other comments transportation have made are mostly related to just some additional information to be provided on the plans. We believe that that information has been provided. However, if the committee wishes to impose those additional information pieces as conditions, then that is acceptable. And I believe we have lost the chair.
So we'll just wait for the chair to come back. And I'll take this as an opportunity to remind Mr. Eagleman that you should be registering in advance to participate. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Barb. I did register.
It's Danny Bellissimo here. I was having, sorry, Barbie, you finished? I didn't want to interrupt you. You okay?
Go ahead, Danny.
Okay, sorry. I couldn't hear what you were saying about the transportation services. For some reason, I'm having audio problems here. Can you repeat what you were saying about those three items that transportation services is requesting because of those items they're asking for deferral? You're okay with those three? Is that, or you've changed those three? Can you say that again, please?
Yes, Mr. Bellissimo. So essentially, transportation provided their main concern was the fact that we were proposing the building on a shared right-of-way that is shared with 93 Lake Crescent, the immediately adjacent neighbor. We have the revised plans that we have submitted reflect a greater setback on the side with the shared right-of-way so that we are entirely outside of that right-of-way. So that concern, which was transportation's major concern, has been resolved with the revised plans. They did also, as you can see on the screen at the bottom on page 2, they provided some 3 minor notes that basically just pertain to some additional information that is needed on the plans. We believe we have provided that information, but if the committee would like to impose those 3 other notes as a condition, then that is acceptable. And through you, Mr. Chair, I think we lost you.
Yeah, I'm using the city computer as a camera because I use my Mac for my materials, and it just suddenly, I touched it and it suddenly started making these crazy noises, and then so I called back now on my cell phone. So
okay.
I'll abstain from the decision in this matter because I wasn't present for all of the presentation. So did we deal with the transportation issue?
Yes, I was just reiterating it to Mr. Bellissimo. That's all I've said so far. So if you want me to just repeat that one more time, I can do that.
No, I guess I'll abstain. So just proceed. I don't want to waste any more time. I'll just
yes. Okay.
So, please proceed.
I'll provide a brief presentation if the committee wishes. Okay, thank you. So I would just like to note, we have revised the variances. I believe that's already reflected on the amended public notice. We have just made reductions to the variances that were identified on the public notice, and we have eliminated the roof eaves variance. But I don't believe I need to go through those revisions specifically. And before getting into the variances, I would like to note that we have consulted with community planning staff regarding this application, and the revisions that we have made are to their satisfaction. I already addressed the comments from transportation, so I won't go over that again. But we are also acceptable to the urban forestry recommended standard condition number 3. So regarding the 3 variances that we're requesting, the proposed side main wall height results in an increase of 90 centimeters over what is permitted as of right. That minor change will be in keeping with the existing character of the neighborhood. The ceiling heights are of a modest 10 feet and 9 feet for the first and second floors respectively. And the proposal is also compliant with the maximum permitted height and is similar to or less than a number of previous approvals within the neighborhood and on the street. Specifically, the immediately adjacent dwelling at 93 Lake Crescent was approved for a wall height of 8.6 meters. 130 Lake Crescent approved for a wall height of 7.59, and 157 Hillside approved for 8 meters. Many dwellings on the street have a very similar design to the proposal, with 2 stories above an integral garage. And the design is largely what causes the wall height variance. And this design is very much in keeping with the existing character along Lake Crescent. Regarding variance number 2, the additional massing proposed will be distributed over 2 floors, and the resulting dwelling will be in keeping with the existing character of the neighborhood. The proposal, as I noted, is compliant with the maximum permitted height, but it is also compliant with all setbacks, all landscaping, as well as the maximum building depth, which demonstrates that the FSI is appropriate and is not an overdevelopment of the subject property. There have been a number of approvals similar to wall height approvals. There have been a number of approvals for FSI on the street and within the neighborhood. The immediately adjacent dwelling at 93 Lake Crescent was approved for 0.7 times the lot area. 79 Lake Crescent approved for 0.7. 100 Lake Crescent approved for 0.76, and 81 Lake Crescent also approved for 0.76. Lastly, the proposed building length. The length of 17.5 meters includes the proposed bay window on the front wall, which you can see on the screen right now on the front elevation. Just on the left-hand side of the front elevation, those two windows above the garage, that is a bay window, and that is included in the length. Excluding that bay window, the majority of the dwelling is at a length of 17.3 meters, which is just 30 centimeters or 1 foot greater than what is permitted as of right. As I mentioned, it's also compliant. The proposal is compliant with the maximum depth as well as the minimum required rear yard setback. And all rear landscaping requirements, which demonstrates that the length meets the intent of the bylaw and is in keeping with the neighborhood. Again, there have been a number of approvals for length on the street and within the neighborhood. The immediately adjacent dwelling at 93 Lake Crescent was approved for 17.74 meters. 100 Lake Crescent was approved for 17.38, and 127 Lake Crescent approved for 18.04. I also would like to just briefly mention that I'm only aware of one objection letter regarding this application from 93 Lake Crescent. I have reviewed their objection letter, and I'll just note that all the variances we're seeking, they were 93 Lake Crescent was approved for the same variances at a higher degree and asked for additional variances as well. So based on the provided justification, I'm of the opinion that this proposal fits in with the existing and planned context, is consistent with the redevelopment trends along Lake Crescent, and meets the 4 tests under section 45(1). I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eagleman. And I actually, so I was only absent for the transportation issue, so I will participate and make, because I don't want that to avoid a potential tie as well. So I heard, I just didn't hear the issue about the transportation deferral request. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Eagleman at this time? And if not, we'll hear from the neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Ditchflag next door, who wrote the letter, and we'll get their letter up on the screen as they make their presentation. So no questions for Mr. Eagleman at this point? Okay.
Taylor has a question.
Oh, okay, I don't see everyone's a smaller screen now. I don't get
see my.
Yeah.
I got two hands up for you. Doesn't work?
No, because my phone now and it show me the whole grid. So
okay.
For the lunch hour.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Eagleman. With respect to variance 1, can you comment on my presumption that the change is due to the fact that you're no longer encroaching on the 1.07 meter right away?
The change to FSI.
Yes, variance 1.
So no, that variance is unrelated to the encroachment on the right of way. We have lowered the house itself so that the basement is not included in the FSI. That is what brought the FSI down. And just to clarify, the revised proposal is no longer encroaching onto the right of way.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Eagleman at this point? Or if not, we'll hear from the neighbors. And again, I don't know if the neighbors will hear whether they're commenting on the revision. I looked. It looks like the FSI wasn't part of the objection, so perhaps I assume it was at 0.669, or they were aware. So that was accomplished at large because the basement was first assumed to apply, and it no longer is counts. Was that by dropping it lower in the basement, or how did that happen, Mr. Eagleman?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, it was by lowering the basement and also lowering the first floor slightly.
Thank you. Okay, okay, so let's hear. I know we're going to hear from Mr. or Mrs. Ditchflag.
Yes, hello, good morning. This is Dennis Ditchflag speaking. You can hear me okay?
Yes, maybe a little bit louder.
Okay, I will try my very best.
Sure
I'm owner and resident of 93 Lake Crescent, which is a property to the west of the proposed development.
Did we just lose Mr. Ditchflag?
Yes, correct.
Okay, please proceed. I guess we lost you for a second. If you can start over.
Okay. So we what you see on the screen is our letter of objection to the variances originally 2, 3, and 4. I guess number 4 has been revised now, so we're really just talking about numbers 2 and 3, which is the building length and the building height. With regards to those 2 variances on objections, particularly to the length of the building, what we can see from the drawings is that the building would be longer than ours, and particularly that would impact the basement walkout, which is a secondary dwelling unit in our property, so it provides additional housing in the community. What it will impact there is the daylight in the unit, as well as the rentability, and because the property at 95 Lake Crescent is closer to the side of the basement walkout, it would also impact the lighting as well as the winter safety of the tenant entering and exiting the unit, which we believe is of primary concern here. We also feel that the longer building would impact our own privacy on the first floor and provide additional and unnecessary shading to both the windows in the backyard. So what we've asked for here is the rejection of the proposed variance to the maximum allowable length. When we come to the proposed height of the building, again, we're talking about daylight concerns of the livability of our property and our house, and also impacting the future resale value. Of additional concern is the again the availability of lighting in between the houses, which is the only way for the tenant to enter and exit the property. We also have a side door that we use for our own purposes. So this area is getting used daily, multiple times. With regards to the height of the building is actually going to be higher than our property. We actually have a flat roof as opposed to the pitched roof that is proposed for 95. On our flat roof, we have installed solar panels, and these panels are going to be impacted in the afternoon, evening hours. The energy that we produce there is not just for our own consumption. Any excess energy that we produce, we're actually sharing with the net metering system with the community of Toronto. For the year to date, as of the writing of this letter, we had actually provided 5.6 megawatts of power to the city of Toronto, which we believe is of great benefit again to the community overall. What is to note about our property as well is that this house is built to Passive House standards, which is an energy efficiency standard that relies largely on the construction of the building envelope, meaning the insulation of the walls and windows to provide passive heating and cooling to the house. And with the additional height proposed for 95 Lake Crescent, especially the windows on the west side of our house would be impacted to that, meaning we would require a lot more energy for the heating of the house during the longer winter months. That pretty much covers our objections. The eaves, I guess, has been withdrawn. So for the given reasons in our letter and our presentation, we kindly ask the committee to reject the proposed minor variances. Thank you very much for hearing us.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ditchflag, for their presentation. Does anyone have any questions for the speaker? And please call out because I don't have a visual on everyone now that I'm on my cell phone. Slide over. And no questions for the speaker, so let's go back then to the applicant for his rebuttal.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, if it's possible, I would like to ask staff to pull up the site plan. I'll just point out that as I mentioned this in my presentation, so you'll see on the site plan, the adjacent neighbor at 93 Lake Crescent, the house that is shown on the site plan, that does not reflect the house that currently exists at 93 Lake Crescent. It was fairly recently redeveloped. We did provide an updated survey. So if staff could pull up that updated survey as well, that shows the currently existing house at 93 Lake Crescent. And the house at 93 Lake Crescent, yes, that survey. So that is the existing house at 93 Lake Crescent on the right. That house was approved for an FSI of 0.7 times the lot area, which is greater than what we're proposing. It was approved for a side main wall height of 8.6 meters, which is almost a meter greater than what we're proposing. And it was also approved for a length of 17.74 meters, which is again greater than what we're proposing. So the house is actually, the proposed dwelling is actually very similar in design to the adjacent neighbor at 93 Lake Crescent, and will actually be less in terms of built form, length, height, and FSI. And it's only wall height. It's not the overall height that we're requesting as a variance. So we are compliant with the maximum permitted overall height. And I think that's it, Mr. Chair. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions from Mr. Eagleman or for the neighbor for that matter at this point, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Just a brief question, if I may, Mr. Chair, from Mr. Eagleman. The site plan was not very clear, and that's what I was trying to struggle with. Will your property project further past the plane of the existing number 93, or will it be shorter than 93 at the rear?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Komorek, you bring up a good point. It would be ideal to have the currently existing dwelling at 93 Lake Crescent be reflected on the site plan. However, that is not the case. So I can't give you a definitive answer. What I can say is that we're compliant with the maximum permitted building depth, and we're seeking a length variance that is less than what was approved for 93 Lake Crescent. So
I understand, but it's difficult to visualize the impact between the relationship between the two houses without the site plan.
yes, I understand, Mr. Komorek.
Hello, we're still live.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I can't give a definitive answer because the site plan does not reflect the existing condition at 93 Lake Crescent.
Okay, there you have your answer. Any other questions? For either party, or is someone ready for a motion? And again, by calling out, not by a show of hands. To scroll.
Danny Bellissimo is ready for a motion if there's no further questions.
I saw Mr. Taylor's hand went up just before I had scrolled. Is there, you have a question, Mr. Taylor, or?
No, I was prepared to make a motion.
Okay.
Should I proceed?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm satisfied the variances meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. I'm confident that the variances are minor in a numerical and an impact from a numerical and an impact perspective. I move approval of the revised application subject to urban forestry condition 3.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
I'm happy to second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, I just want to see if Stan's hand is up. Is everyone, I see everyone.
I'm in favor.
Okay, so it's unanimous. Yeah, Mr. Eagleman. Thank you, Mr. Eagleman. And thank you, Mr. Ditchflag. And perhaps this is the time that we can take a morning break for 15 minutes. It's now 11:14, return at 11:30 with everyone's permission. That sounds okay. Okay.
That sounds good.
Okay, so we'll be back at 11:30 to proceed with item number 8 and go from there. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if we have quorum back. Hello? Just want to make sure my audio is working.
Yes, Mr. Chair, you're good to go, and we are live on
Okay,
YouTube.
I'm back. Yeah, I'm back on my computer as a camera. I apologize. I don't know what happened. So now I can see more of the participants. Okay, so item number 8 is 16 Foxcoate, Crescent. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. And there are 9 variances, and we don't have anything. All we have is a Metrolinx advisory. We don't have anything else on this application. And the speaker is Curtis Van Koolen, the agent for the applicant. Welcome, Mr. Van Koolen.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and fellow committee members. My name is Curtis Van Koolen of Hughes Design Studio. I'm the designer and the agent. My office is at 1A Conestoga Drive, Unit 301, Brampton, Ontario.
Okay, looks like we don't have, notwithstanding it's a new build with 9 variances, we have no comments other than Metrolinx advisory on this application. I believe we just need a presentation unless anyone wants one. Does anyone have any, would you like to just advise the committee of anything?
Yeah, I could just quickly point out a couple little items with regards to these variances, if the committee decides that's adequate.
Yep, well, so yeah, why don't you proceed with, just go ahead with that. There are 9 variances, so, but everyone, no comments from anyone, including Urban Forestry.
Yeah, so we do have 7 letters of support from the neighbors in the surrounding area. So I did really want to mention that. So we did canvass the neighbors, and 7 of them did sign letters of support. I just wanted to quickly run through the variances. Don't want to waste anybody's time. The FSI is generally in keeping with a couple of the newer developed properties in the area. So we are asking for a bit of an FSI variance there. We are actually retaining the foundation of the existing dwelling. It's considered a new build because we are removing more than 50% of the existing above grade walls. But a lot of the resulting variances do come from the fact that we do want to try and save some money and retain the existing foundation and the existing level of the first floor. So that kind of ties in a number of the variances all the way back to the building height as well as the height of the first floor. So I just wanted to point at that and just kind of say that that's the reasoning behind this. We are proposing a very modest design. In terms of the overall massing, we've done a decent job on trying to make it look like a more traditional. I don't know if the staff can go to the front elevation, but we do try to mitigate the massing by way of the front porch and rear porch. There's a feature over the garage too that also divides the front elevation. So we're really trying our best to break up the massing a little bit here as well. So just wanted to go run through that with you.
Yeah,
guys.
Thanks for running through that. I don't think we need to hear further. We're sort of behind schedule. And
I understand.
In addition, we didn't have the 8 letters of support. That's why I was a little confused. We have this new build. Normally you get some people misunderstanding or writing in,
Yeah, they are on the portal, so.
Okay, well, maybe they did get, I don't think they got into our package.
Okay, I apologize.
No, they didn't.
So thank you for that. Let's just see if anyone has any, thank you for that truncated presentation. If anyone has any questions or is ready to weigh in with a motion.
If no one has any questions, I'm prepared to make a motion. This is a big improvement over what is currently there, and I'm happy to move for approval. I believe there are no conditions. There's just a Metrolinx advisory, so I'm happy to move approval of the variances with no conditions.
Anybody seconds the motion?
Okay, all in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Now I can see everyone. Great.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Van Koolen. Okay, next application is item number 9, 1382 Weston Road. It's an application to construct a 2-story rear addition, a new 2nd-story rear yard deck. A previous committee of adjustment application was approved relating to reestablishment of former lots, and a previous committee of adjustment application was also approved relating to permitted uses on the subject lands. I believe those were both in May 30th, 2000, the year 2000. We have an order to comply, Metrolinx advisory, supporting materials, 2 sets, photos, and a petition of support. We also have a separate copy of that same petition. And the speaker for this application is Graham Barrett. Welcome, Mr. Barrett.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members.
Still morning, not for much longer.
Oh, yep, still morning. Yep.
Yeah, let's perhaps get Mr. Barrett's materials up on the board. It's a photo, I believe, and some previous decisions.
Yeah, my presentation materials it's actually an 8-page PDF with some images. The other presentation materials are tree photos, I believe.
Right. So it's the first set. You can get that up on the screen. It's the first bookmark of supporting materials. There we go in our package. Okay,
Perfect.
perhaps you're the only speaker. There's no one here in opposition, because it's just a very Coles Notes version of a presentation.
Sure, gladly. So once again, Graham Barrett, SGL Planning and Design, 1547 Bloor Street West, agent for the owner of 1382 Weston Road. So this is a proposal to rebuild or repair and legalize an existing rear 2-story addition with 2nd floor deck that was damaged by fire. This addition houses living space for each of the 3 units in the dwelling, and these units are currently vacant. There's no staff report, as you mentioned, so no concerns from community planning. I've read the Metrolinx advisory. I see no issues there. I've also seen the urban forestry report and understand that a permit to injure a private tree will be required. This was missed at the time of submission. There is a tree in the rear yard on the property line. Considering this is simply a repair situation, there's no excavation required, and this tree won't be impacted, but we're happy to submit that application, of course. There are only 2 minor variances. They're very minor. They're to legalize existing conditions. One is a side yard setback, and the other is relating to the eaves. I can walk through all the specifics of this situation or answer any questions you may have, but it's essentially to legalize what's existing, repair it, and get those units back out into the rental market.
We've lost the chair.
We've lost the chair, and I actually have a question as well.
Sure. Do we want to wait for Mr. Clark?
Yeah, I think so. Dan has a question before me.
No, I have no question. I was ready to move forward, but go ahead.
Well, I can ask the question. I'm not sure this needs the attendance of the chair in order to ask this question, but I know photographs and there was no note. I mean, it's an existing condition, but there's absolutely no soft landscaping in the rear yard. It's completely paved, and it doesn't look like it's being used for parking. Can you comment on that?
There is a deck that's built in the back. You're right. It is mostly hardscape. I don't believe any variances were triggered for landscaping, and that's potentially because it's in a commercial residential zone. But it has been through a zoning review. So if there were requirements for soft landscaping, they would have been identified.
It also isn't noted. It isn't noted on the site plan, so they may have not assumed that it was hard surface. Mr. Barrett?
I suppose that's possible. The driveway is noted as asphalt along the.
Yeah, but it's. I'm just judging by the photographs. It looks like you can't park a car through that laneway. Like there's not enough room. So I don't understand why the rear yard is paved over if it's not being used for parking.
I'm not entirely sure either. These are existing conditions that have been as such for more than a decade at least. So, and it hasn't been problematic when there were tenants in the building. I'm sorry, I don't have a.
I'm just wondering if that was missed and whether we should be addressing it here and how we could address it, because it's certainly not in keeping with Toronto Green standards any longer, especially if it's not being used as parking. So I'm just putting it out there, and I just really. further. Do you know, can you confirm whether that's being used as parking? Because from what I can tell by the photograph that was included in the package, it can't be used as parking because you can't get down that driveway. So, and it's entirely paved over the rear yard.
Yeah, I'm unable to confirm that at this moment. It was not a required variance. Hasn't been brought to my attention. There is a gate leading down there. I agree. It doesn't look wide enough to drive a car down.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any comments regarding that?
My only experience is that if the drawings did not include landscaping, then the zoning plan examiner could have missed it, but they have a checklist and they're supposed to look at landscaping as well. So I think if we approve it, then and it gets caught later on, it has to come back to the committee of deficiency in landscaping. That's been my experience.
Okay, I'm back. You can hear my computer, my HP computer, city computer buzzing in the background in the next room. It just went wild again, so I'm not using it anymore. Try to go turn off that sound. If you can hear it, it's in the next room. Okay, so
I wonder if comments about that. Hearing none.
Just a question for staff, if with regards
Sorry,
to.
I had muted myself. For that zone, I'm not sure if there are any landscaping requirements for the rear yard. And I also don't know if, based on the tenancy, if they're required to provide parking. So they technically do have access to park in the back, and perhaps that would cause other variances if landscaping were to be installed.
Doesn't look like there's any to drive a car through those two buildings. That's why I'm asking that. It doesn't look like it can be used for parking. Anyway.
Looking at their survey, it does show a setback of 2.47 at the narrowest point, which you can fit a car technically. Perhaps not a large pickup or van, but that may comply with bylaw standards for driveway access.
As I'm looking at the zoning right now for landscaping requirements in a CR zone in development standard set 2, which is the zoning for this property. It says no landscaping is required unless 4010 5010 3 applies. So not entirely sure here.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to bring it to somebody's attention, that's all.
Stan, did you have another question?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, did forestry request condition 2 on this?
Yes.
Okay, I would like Barb to answer because I must have missed it. I didn't see it in my package.
Yes, I do have forestry too for this application.
Okay, sorry, so my mistake. Thank you. If there's no other questions, I'm willing to move a motion of approval subject to forestry condition 2. I believe the tests are met on this application.
Andy Bellissimo seconds the motion.
Okay, all in favor? I will abstain because I didn't hear that application due to my computer problem. So I'll be on my cell phone for the rest of the day, so if you can call out motions and not just raise hands because I can't see everyone. Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay. So 10 has been deferred, so on to item number 11, which is 544 Royal York Road. And it's an application for a 2-story rear addition, a 2nd-story addition, and a secondary suite. We have a cover letter, urban forestry requesting condition number 2, and 2 letters of support from both adjacent neighbors. That's all that we appear to have. Judy Sansol is the agent for the applicant, no other speakers. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Judy Samsole. I'm the architect and the agent. I do have a presentation. It would sort of repeat what I mentioned in the covering letter, but I'm happy to go through it.
Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt for 1 sec, I believe planning is asking for refusal.
They did. I have a comments to that.
Thank you.
Oh, did I miss? Oh, okay. I missed that in my notes when I was doing my review. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so let's have a presentation, please, in light of that.
Thank you. So just some background, it is an existing 2-story semi-detached house with an existing basement suite. It's about 890 square feet for the main living area currently. With our proposal, we are seeking a 2-story rear addition that would align with the existing rear addition of the adjacent touching property. And we would then add a secondary suite in this new addition. I did speak with the planner. We talked about why they were refusing, and to be honest, I've always left less clear after speaking. And so I'll just explain why. Our proposal, this new development, it meets the key objectives of the official plan. It respects the reinforcing existing physical character of the neighborhood. It meets height, density, depth, length, setbacks. It looks and acts like a single-family dwelling with a secondary suite. The exception here, that's instead of the basement being a 2-bedroom rental suite, the owner opted for 2 studio-style suites. Why? In the last 7 years, they've owned the property since 2015, and they've had tenants in this basement suite. Typically, their tenants have been, single, non-professional, lower, income tenants, and the rental has been easy and it's been popular. They felt that there was a market for this. So people who aren't looking for a studio condo in Liberty Village, people who aren't looking for a rooming house, independent living for single people at a reasonable cost. In reviewing the zoning for this area, the RM is a U3. It's allowed 3 units, so I felt comfortable moving forward with this. So the only thing we don't meet is technicality that a single residence is permitted 1 secondary suite versus 2, and then it would have been considered a triplex. And I spoke with the planner about this, and in fact, their letter sort of helps prove it for me. It's just a typology that they don't recognize. But as his letter points out, we meet density, we meet depth, we meet height. The city, he also notes in his report that the city is looking to intensify residential suites. And it's only because EHON has not yet recognized this specific one. My sense is we're ahead of the curve. We have letters of support from neighbors on both sides who've had tenants here. The site supports parking. It has lots of light because of the setback on the north side. We can get decent windows in there. So these are nice units for a different type of tenant, which, as I've mentioned, our owner felt was a need in the city, and they wanted to continue that. So that was my approach. I can also talk about the balcony, but I think that's the main one. Did you want me to address the balcony as well?
Might as well.
Okay, so by comparison, this one seems a little more.
Variant. You're only slightly over it, less than half a meter. So I guess you're allowed that as a right. The increase is minimal. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it seems frivolous. It's sort of a design thing, but it does sort of help with design. So this balcony acts as a balcony off the master, but it is also an overhang. If you show the back elevation, it's an overhang over a large opening we have. So it was nice to carry it across. I could move that railing 6 feet and meet this requirement. But again, it's a lot nicer looking this way. It meets the intent, my feeling was, of the bylaw, which is sort of privacy. When you're so close to a property line, you don't want the second story overlooking your neighbors, but it's small. It's off the master bedroom, so there's no intent that there's going to be, parties and gatherings here. And again, the neighbors signed off. They were showed these drawings and they're okay with it. So I feel that one's quite minor.
And you're a half a meter over on what your permit is as of right. So okay. So I have a question in terms of, now I've read the staff report that I didn't see when I was doing my review. So they seem to be saying you're allowed 3 units, but the intent on the bylaw, and is this single land because it's a semi, they're saying you can't have 2 secondary suites. They want you to go, there is a lane here, I guess, but I guess it would be prohibitive to build I heard it couldn't cost up to $500,000 to build a laneway suite and then to get, modest rent. May
They're
not.
not laneway, it would be a garden suite. There's
Laneway
no,
there, so it would be a garden suite.
yeah, so, and they are quite prohibitive. I've looked into them. By the time you get the side yard setbacks in most of Toronto, they're kind of hard to get. They're for much wider lots anyway, but yes, but you're right, like you're saying, they're expensive. And again, it really was the owner, the planner at one point said, I almost feel bad doing this, but it's what we are doing because it's just not one of those recognized. I feel like I could take off that door. This would look exactly the same. It would act the same. Instead of having four people in one family walk through a door, you have 2 people walking through 2 doors. I'm appalled, to be honest, but that's not the point here.
Okay, members, any questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
Anybody would like to weigh in on this one? I agree with the applicant. I think you are ahead of the curve. It does intensify residential use. It's a topography or topology issue, as you said. And I'll tell you, in 1973, I wrote a 5th-year thesis on laneway housing, and this is exactly my proposal in addition to laneway housing. So it goes back a long time, 1973. So I think you are ahead of the curve of the planning, and so I find that the variants are minor in nature. You're trying to achieve the objective of intensification, and I would like to move for approval of the variances, conditional on forestry F2, 1, I believe. No, it's 2. 2. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Seconder for that motion.
I'm happy to second that motion. I agree with Mr. Bellissimo.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Alderson. All in favor? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Staff, if you can let me know if everyone has their hands up. I can't see. I only see Laura.
I'm in favor, Stan.
Okay.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sansol.
Thank you.
We'll go over to item number 12 now. 35 Dayton Avenue. It's an application to maintain the existing enclosed front porch. 1 variance, the front yard setback. We have cover letter, urban forestry, looking for condition number 2. I'm sorry, wrong. Cover letter from John Blair. We have 9 letters of support. And we have, the cover letter talks about a minor infraction of the bylaw. I guess it's a variance, but that was, I like that. So we'll hear from Mr. Blair on the line, the area resident, the owner of the property.
Yes, John Blair here from 35 Dayton.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you for the time this morning. I'll be very brief. The request is for approval to close up the existing porch with windows and a door. And we'll answer any questions that you have. I'm here with my wife, Marina, who's the other owner of the house.
Okay, I was thinking, I see we have a neighbor registered to speak, but it looks from the approval letters or support letters that he's going to be in favor. He wrote to declare his support. So let's just, does anyone have any questions, first of all, for Mr. Blair, or are we getting his neighbor?
I have a quick question. In the cover letter that I read yesterday or the day before, it said that there was a photograph attached, and I never did see it. I'm just wondering if staff can put that up, if they have it, if they can put that photograph on the screen.
Yeah, we just sent photographs second time. Yes. So hi, my name is Marina. I'm wife of John. We just sent second time yesterday 4 photographs which shows our porch. We sent to Nicole, and it was like this notice what we have to put in our house. Everything provided together with all these support letters. We have photographs. We sent it yesterday. We sent it twice. We sent 2 weeks ago as soon as we put notice, and we sent second time yesterday because Nicole asked us to provide it again. And we sent. We have this emails. BCC from
Okay, do we really need to, let's just, okay, we don't have a photo, or we have a photo? You always look on Google Maps. So I don't know if that's it said the letter.
We do not have a photo.
It doesn't show existing conditions, so.
Okay.
It's existing 4 photos.
Okay. This has already been built, the maintain situation. So we don't have a photo. Does anyone need to see if it has a photo, or can we proceed without a photo? We have 9 letters of support, and when we hear it, I think the neighbor who's going to speak next is also in support. So,
yeah, but
staff, we have a letter, or we don't have. We have a photo, or we don't have a photo.
come on.
Staff.
We
Does
do not
staff
have a photo.
Okay, we don't have a photo. Thank you. Okay, does anyone? Let's hear from Mr. Rector at 39. I believe he's in support.
How you doing, sir?
Hello, Mr. Rector.
Good, good. Just gonna give you a fast background on these people. I sound like Don Cherry when I say that, but he's true and so am I. So they're very professional people, both of them. They do spend an awful lot of time and money to make their property look very attractive. Not only the front, but sometimes you can see over the fence in the back. They maintain it very well and have spent a lot of money. I mean, you got a choice. Do you want something that looks good like they built? Or do you want to have somebody that's from the Windermere and Queensway neighborhood where they sell drugs after 9 o'clock? So it does look good. Now, I've done a lot of work in my background. I've done a lot of work in my background, my own decks, my own fences, my windows, my doors, kitchen, and everything else. The job they did looked very professional, very professional. So when your guy came out, I don't know if he was blind or not. Why couldn't he see that? It looked professional, well done, very clean, very
They still have
appropriate.
here for the variance for the front yard setback. No one is.
Okay,
so
but what made me laugh is you guys sent me a letter showing both properties. The neighbor's deck is right on the property line. Where's the 0.3671 distance I got to keep? So obviously your guy didn't see the quality job, but he didn't see either the deck on the neighbor, which is not in question, I know, but still. But all I want to say is they've done a very, very good job. The job looked professional, and what is a real travesty, I had to sit out front and watch them pull that apart. Now, I know this day and age, everything's expensive. Nobody's got a lot of money. And even if you did, why is somebody pulling that apart and wasting that money they spent?
Sorry, who pulled something apart? Something been pulled
Their contractor had to tear it down because this grievance going through. They didn't have the permit for it. I understand, but they could have granted the permit after the job was done because it did look good.
Okay, as far as I know, it looked like this is an existing situation
Yes.
that's coming to legalize. So I didn't know someone tore it down.
Yeah, it did. Before that was built, there was a cement slab there by code, 4.5 inch, and it was a porch or balcony, whatever you want to call it. That looked good, and all they did was just enclose that section and put windows up on top of the enclosed, and it was all the front was all done with brickwork and everything, so it looked really, really nice.
Okay, anyway, sir, thank you for your neighbor for staying on the line here for 2.5 hours to report. But are you saying there may be another variance on about the deck, or that's from the neighbor's deck?
Well, that's what I can't understand. The guy came out and saw a problem with what we're talking about here, but the neighbor's deck is built right on the property line. You got to say 0.3761 by code from the property line. How can you not see that but see this?
Okay, so you're talking about the house at 37 between the two of you,
Yeah.
not about anything to do with Mr. Blair's lot.
Yeah. Like I said, he come out and he could see that the job wasn't professional, but he couldn't see the neighbor's deck, which is right there. I mean, I don't know if he knows what he's doing or not.
Okay. In any event, thank you, sir, for your support for your neighbor. That's very nice of you. Does anyone?
Yeah, but it did look very professional.
Yeah. Does anyone have questions for Mr.
Danny Bellissimo would like to weigh in with a motion if there are no further questions on this one.
Thank you.
This house is a very small house. If you look at the site plan and the plan of the floor plan, and closing porches is very typical these days, and I find that the setback variance is very minor in nature. So I would move for approval of the variances. There are no conditions, so I need a lot of support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bliss.
I do have a question, though, to clarify. If we're voting to legalize and maintain something that no longer exists because it's being torn down, what are we making a motion on?
We're moving to approve the variance.
Has the structure been actually torn down?
Good question.
Laura, sorry.
Was he talking about previous? He may have been talking about something previous. I don't know.
Yeah, we can't rely on information from a person just, appearing today. From what I see, the drawings, it shows an existing condition and it went through.
Well, I'm just asking that question.
Yeah, no, but it went through zoning, so zoning would have questioned that too, but so I'd like to keep my motion to approve the variances.
Judging by the photo
Fairness-
used for the sign declaration, it looks like most of it is up. I'm not sure if they just took out the enclosure part, but
So some of the structure is still remaining.
it's there, yes.
Yeah, I think it's important we understand this, Danny, because we didn't open it up in fairness to other people to ask questions before you piped in. I agreed. I didn't think anyone had, but given that Ms. Alderson has, I think, a legitimate question based on what we heard, and I couldn't quite understand from the neighbor if something previously built there was he took something about cement stairs or something. So I think we should clarify the situation, and you're certainly entitled to ask that. So you're a little premature.
That's fine. I didn't see Laura's hand. Sorry.
Yeah, well,
I'm just saying that. I'm just going by what we have in front of us, which is what we always do. Thank you.
So let's.
Which is why a photograph would have been helpful. That's why I was asking for one.
Yeah. So Laura, you're entitled to ask that question. Let's get an answer from Mr. Blair.
Yeah, this is the one.
There it is.
Yeah, and let's hear Mr. Blair. Mrs. Blair, can you please stay quiet? We only have one speaker, and it's disruptive. So there's the picture. Okay, no tag team. Mr. Blair. So Mr. Blair, that's the existing situation?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and what did your neighbor, Mr. Rector, talk about something being torn
We
down?
had windows put in and we had to take them out because of an order to comply.
I see. Okay, he's talking about the windows. So
I see.
We'll be able to go back in once you get this approval.
Exactly.
Oh,
yes.
this is the existing.
This
So
is
you can
existing now?
see it doesn't show the entire porch, but I don't think all of it has been completed.
Okay.
Judging by this.
In that case, I'd like to second the motion that Mr. Bellissimo made.
Well, okay. Perfect.
Do we have a motion
no-
to approve and seconded
With
by?
no condition. I believe there are no conditions, so.
Yeah. There was only the one, it's only the one variance, right? So, okay.
Yeah.
So we have a motion, seconded, all in favor. Unanimous, I assume, even though I can't see anyone, right?
I'm in
Believe
favor.
unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, on to item number 13. We have a revised agenda page for the showing revisions. It's to construct a new detached garage in the rear yard. Applicant proceeded by way of waiver. We have 3 variances. They've all been reduced. We have the revised plans and the revised zoning notice waiver. We have the applicant's presentation. Applicant's revisions, and we have planning giving us a report for information advising they are satisfied now following the revisions. TRC has no objection, but advised the permit will still be required. And there are 2 letters of opposition from 47 and 87. And in the additional materials, we have a letter of support from the neighbor right next door at 39. 2 speakers on this item. Shervin Fazam Baboudi, the agent for the applicant, as well as the neighbor from 14 West Royal Road. Welcome, Shervin Baboudi.
Good afternoon, committee, Mr. Chairman. This is Shervin Fazam Baboudi from Sun Homes Inc. And I'm representing the number 37 Claritan Crescent in this afternoon.
Okay, I don't know if we need to full presentation, but it looks like some of the neighbors are concerned about this garage being increased in size. As set out in the 2 letters that the name we've read, I assume you've read. One neighbor says it's being used as a commercial garage. The other neighbor talks about weeds, in the area in between. And so please just, if you can give us a sort of a small presentation why this is being done.
Sure. The existing garage is actually 24 feet by something around 17 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And the proposed new garage is 16 feet. The new proposed garage is shorter in the length, is a 23 feet, but the wider is a 19 feet 6 to fit 2 car inside the garage.
Yeah, I see. Actually, you're only 2 meters over what's permitted in terms of the size. You really question mainly I guess the coverage issue about the landscape area and the coverage on the lot. The size is only 2 meters over. There's no height variance on the garage. So please, if you can just deal with the coverage issue.
Yes, correct. We be planning to remove the existing concrete path in the backyard to increase the amount of the soft landscaping over there. I understand the neighbor concern about using the garage. Actually, the garage and the building has been rented out, and the previous tenants use it as a car repair, but the owner decide to excuse them and they use them themselves as their own primary residence. So the owner, she gonna take a place to the new home, and they want to have a 2-car garage so the son can park his car inside the garage.
Okay.
Beside the mom cars, actually. The new proposed area has been changed to get a more soft landscaping area from the 47 square meters to 42. So we make changes as concern and to address the concern of the planning department, and also reduce the coverage from the 16% to the 14 and 28% coverage.
Okay.
The only 3 items we are asking is one of them is just cover. The main item is the coverage.
Yes. Okay. So let's hear from the neighbor. And first of all, does anyone have any questions for the agent, or can we hear from the neighbor?
Yeah, I actually just want to clarify. The applicant said that it was being rented out. The garage was currently being rented out. Is that correct?
There is no talent right now. The building and the garage rented out, but last year. But right now, the owner excused their talents, so the house and the parking is vacant right now.
So there's no current lease in effect with anyone. So it's not being rented out as a commercial property.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's hear from the neighbor. Ida Ignoto, 14 West Royal Road. So that's located in the rear. Where's West Royal Road? The Crescent here. So is Ida Ignoto on the line?
She is on the line and she's unmuted.
Okay. And I'd like to just...
Ida, you can go ahead. So we actually were not able to microphone check her this morning as well. We were not able to hear her, so.
Anyway, I know where 14 West Royal Road is in relation to the property. Is anyone, looking at our location map, it's the Crescent, it's backing onto a Claritan Crescent property as well. So I'm confused as to the interest of this person. We don't have a letter. Anyway, if they're not on the line, they're not on the line. Does anyone have any further questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
Danny Bedesma is ready for a motion. I'm looking at the location map, and this whole block, everyone has garages in the backyard, so it's very typical of it in terms of layout. And making a garage a little bit larger to accommodate the second car, I think, is a reasonable request. I don't think has a negative impact, so I'd like to move for approval of the variances.
Okay, thank you. No conditions. Seconded for that motion. I can't see hands. Please call out your name.
It's Stan. I'll second as revised, I believe.
Yes. Thank you. All in favor? I assume. Okay, thank you. Okay, we can now move on to the next item, number 1416 Shand Avenue. It's an application to construct a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling and a 2-story west side addition. There are 8 variances. We have a cover letter from William Hall. The agent planning is recommending refusal, but if approved, they want a condition of approval privacy screen on the west side of the proposed rear platform. And we have 2 letters of support from 13 and 14. Urban Forestry wants condition number 2. That's all we have. And there was 1 speaker, William Hall, agent for the applicant. Mr. Hall, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. I'm happy to give a small presentation to deal with some of the issues that were raised in the planning letter, if you would like.
Oh, if you'd like, for sure. Yes, of course. If they're recommending refusal, you need to rebut, convince the committee.
Of course, well understood. And you have my letter in front of you, so I won't belabor the points. The main issues, we've had conversation a couple of times with planning staff, and during those conversations, it was clear that the main issues were, the elevated coverage and FSI numbers, but it was also tacitly understood that there is many precedents. And part of the reason for that, and the reason why Shand Avenue seems to generate a lot of applications to committee, is just literally the lot size. At the very top end of the Kingsway, there are a few streets, top end of Strath Avenue and McClinchy Avenue, that are just unusually small lots. That's just how they were laid out historically. Shand, and on the north side of Shand, are even smaller. And I have not run across in my career a lot as small as this one. So it is understood that small lots artificially generate larger percentages. And I can certainly point to the committee to a number of precedents for the numbers for FSI and for coverage on Shand itself, on the corner at Dunedin, and in the smaller lots at the top of Strath and McClinchy. So that said, during the conversation, it seemed that the major issue from planning's point of view is the projection of the rear deck. And I can certainly talk to that. They felt that they wanted to redesign the project, and they wanted to shorten the deck by a foot and remove the 20-inch cantilever on the first and second floor. I had to respectfully disagree. Now, planning, of course, has a larger outlook. They have to look after the needs of the neighborhood at large, and I understand that. So their interest basically is the exterior of the house. But as an architect, I have to look after that as well as the plans themselves. Now, committee looks at pretty simplistic plans in their, in the material that's given to you. But if you look at the ground floor plan, it's clear that this is a very basic house. There are only 3 major rooms. There's a dining room, a kitchen, and a family room, and that's it. And upstairs is only a 3-bedroom home. My original instructions from the client was to try and stay within the footprint, which would have been obviously far more appealing to planning. But I was able to prove to my clients that we could not do that. We needed to capture a little bit more area internally. The worst condition is where the projection is, and that's to accommodate the family room. Normally in the Kingsway, my home's 18-foot wide is very nice. 17-foot wide is possible to end up with a seating arrangement. We're down to 16 and a half feet, and we're really stretching it at that. So that is the explanation from our point of view of the projection. The deck itself is merely people expect in our short summer to have outdoor dining, and the rear yard will be a full story below the kitchen, so not optimal, to say the least. So the deck itself is merely to accommodate a table width. So neither of the design choices made there are arbitrary by any means. That's the only point I really wanted to make to committee. And I made them to planning as well. And partly their condition, if you do approve put the condition of a privacy fastener on the west side addresses in the second point, which is just the impact of a deck on the two neighbors on either side. Now, whoever visited the site saw readily that the properties actually terrace up towards the west. And so our neighbor to the west, number 18, is half a story taller than our yard already. So impact not as dramatic as you might imagine just looking at a black and white plan. To the east, it's a huge lot, and they also own all that tableland in behind, which they use in the summer. They have this massive gazebo structure. They are one of the letters of support, so they obviously do not feel the impact is as dramatic as you might expect. We have letters of support across the street, and honestly, from the point of view of the design itself internally, what we're proposing is to what I like to call shrink wrapped around the requirements, and we're not here with any specific number by choice. It was driven literally by the needs of the plan. Do you have any further questions?
Okay, thank you for that. I didn't see the clock if we were in time or not, but I'll have to rely on staff for that. Members have any questions?
Mr. has a question. I'm looking at the location map, and I agree, these houses are small, the lots are small. I agree that your design is not arbitrary, very well thought out. What is in the rear there? I just see grade lines. Is that like a park or ravine? So the rear impact is to nobody, right? Is that correct?
Yes, basically the impact to the rear is non-existent. That area is kind of unusual. Most of the blocks to the south in the Kingsway have a middle zone. No idea what they were thinking of when they laid these streets and blocks out.
But what is the use?
In this case, that zone is unbuildable because it's actually tableland. It's a small creek,
Okay, it's a creek. Thank you.
And so rear yard impact is zero. The nearest neighbor is like a quarter of a kilometer away.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify that. So, I mean, you have many variances here. I'll wait for other questions, but I can make a motion if there's no further questions.
Okay, are there any further questions by other panel members? I can't see hands. I assume that means no.
No questions for me.
Okay, in that case, Mr. Bellissimo, let's say you'd like to weigh in.
Okay, so I'm going to move for approval of the variances. There are many variances, but this is all relative to the size of the lot, the tiny lot, as he said. And the house is not extravagant in terms of scale. So I'm going to move for approval, conditional on forestry F2, and I'll put the condition on by planning, which is to provide the screening in the back. That's one of their only condition, and it reads, the ownership provide a 1.5 meter high privacy screen to the west side of the rear yard platform. So I'll put that condition as the applicant. There's no issue with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Seconder for that.
I'm happy to second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Alderson. All in favor? I assume it's unanimous. Or no, maybe not. Staff, if you can please, I can't see everyone.
It was unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
moving right ahead. Item number 15, 19 Markwood Crescent. It's an application to construct a new front and north side one-story additions. There are two variances. We have support from 21 Markwood right next door, Urban Forestry looking for condition 2. And in the additional materials, we have a support petition with 5 persons representing 3 residences, all in the immediate vicinity. So the speaker on this application is Werner Cram, the agent, and that's the only speaker we have. Welcome, Mr. Cram.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Werner Cram. I'm the agent for the owners, Claudia and Paul Maiatello. We're seeking relief to install the conservatory addition on north and facing in the front yard a bit. The irregular shape of the lot lines kind of precludes us from building anything much else in a different spot. And that's about it. It's a minor variance in my assessment of it. And I believe it meets all the criteria of a minor variance. Thank you very much. Answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Kramer? Someone ready for a motion? And I note we do have forestry condition 2.
I'm ready for a motion if no one has any questions. I
go
believe
ahead.
this is a very straightforward and desirable application, and move for approval subject to urban forestry number 2, condition number 2, I believe.
Danny Bellismo seconds the motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous, I assume?
I don't see Stan's hand.
I'm going to have to excuse myself for the balance of the morning session.
Okay, go ahead, sir. So you were in favor of that one?
Sorry? Yes.
Okay, okay.
It's unanimous.
We'll see you back here in the afternoon, hopefully. Thanks, Dan. Okay, item number, so 16 was deferred, so we're moving on to item number 17, 40 23rd Street. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an new detached garage. There are 5 variances. Looks like the sheet's been revised. Notice variance 5 has been improved from 0.3 meters of the ancillary structure from the north side lot line to 2.11 meters from the north side lot line, whereas 6 meters is permitted, or required rather. We have revised plans, cover letter, supporting material with photographs, and the Long Branch neighborhood guideline checklist. We have a letter of concern from an area neighbor just concerning the traffic flow during construction. So that's not a planning issue. We have an arborist report, and urban forestry is looking for conditions 2, 3, and 5 being a denial. So we have a standalone memo on that one, I believe, or maybe not. I don't know if we have a standalone memo, but they're looking for 2, 3, and 5. And the speaker for this application is Craig Reitz, as well as we have Mr. Choles representing the Long Branch Neighborhood Association registered to speak. So welcome, Mr. Reitz.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your time today. My name is Craig Ritz at CAR Design Studio, 53 Chauncey Avenue, and the agent for the owners.
Yeah, we have 3 sets of supporting materials, so perhaps we can get the first or second one up on the board while you make your presentation.
Certainly. So unfortunately, this application has come about due to a fire, which has resulted in the existing dwelling ordered to be demolished and being forced to rebuild. The owners decided to look at building a larger dwelling that would better accommodate a family in the future. We've seen the documentation from urban forestry, everything related to the trees. We certainly understand the concern of preserving the existing mature trees. And the large mature tree in the side yard, which sits just off of the property line, is in a bit of an unfavorable location given its very close proximity to the existing dwelling, which we could see in figure 2. Actually, if we're able to bring that up, if you want to see that photo of that in the submitted arborist letter. It's quite a clear picture of where that tree sits in relation to the existing dwelling. But from the
members, there is a staff report on the refusal from urban forestry. It'll be shared with you in a moment.
Okay, thank you. So we did.
The photo from our arborist
So that's figure 2. That's not in your package, but in the arborist package, I see tree number 1 located within the city road allowance adjacent to subject property facing west. That's figure 2.
That's correct. So actually, the setback that we're proposing is further from the tree than the current condition. Also in the arborist material, they've provided us that we submitted the tree location drawing showing the tree protection zone for that tree, and obviously the footprint that we're proposing. We're looking to maintain all of these trees. It's not our desire to have any of them removed. Initially, we had concerns, as again, due to an order for the house to be demolished, that might drastically impact the health and kill this tree. And then further consultation with our arborist, we're feeling quite confident that this tree, in fact, can remain. There's a number of measures that we can take to ensure that. And of course, this application approval here today wouldn't absolve us from requiring a complete application to urban forestry, and we would obviously do that and look to work with urban forestry to preserve this tree and also to ensure the health of the cluster of trees adjacent to the driveway that they also had concerns about. In that location, obviously, we could propose some permeable paving, and then in further consultation with our arborist, they've suggested the possible use of soil cells, which is a very effective means of ensuring the health of those trees as well. We do not obtain any letters of support from the neighbors, but the owners have spoken with the adjacent neighbors to the south at number 38, 23rd Street, as well as those directly behind their property at number 3 City Road. And neither of these neighbors had any objection to the variances being requested. The required setback of the tree, as you mentioned earlier, Mr. Chair, we did make a revision there at the request of community planning. We were obviously trying to protect the large mature tree in the southwest corner of the property, and this is why we didn't comply or not currently showing complying with the setback for the garage in order to protect that tree. But community planning, initially we had proposed the garage to be essentially on the property line, and they requested that we just push that back further to the limit of the TPZ, which we did. As I'm sure you're aware, in this community, we're required to work with the Long Branch neighborhood character guidelines. And the guidelines encourage rear yard garages to better enhance the streetscapes. So this was part of the rationale in proposing that rear yard garage, which obviously also improves the design aesthetic of the proposed dwelling, and then allows for the increase in front yard soft landscaping, which again is encouraged in neighborhood character guidelines. Concerning variance number 1, the waiver form for an FSI of 48%, we did submit an FSI study based on research requests that we obtained. And this illustrates many of the dwellings in the neighborhood are in the range of 0.5 to 0.69 FSI. This document was submitted, and it's, if you wish to look at that, it's a supporting material dated November 14th. It was actually previously on the screen. But further to variances 2, 3, and 4, they're all related to the proposed side yard setback. From the outset of the design and planning process here, the owners wish to essentially maintain the footprint of the existing dwelling. Maybe if we could reference drawing SP3 in the drawing set that was submitted to file, so that would be helpful here.
Yeah, I see while you've been making a presentation, we have that original picture I asked you to put up, but you have a lot of big comprehensive application presentation material showing photos, showing the similar build form within the immediate vicinity, numerous examples, so as well as the Long Branch checklist. And we're going to hear from Mr. Scholes, I guess, shortly.
So what we have, sorry, Mr. Chair, what we have on screen here is demonstrating the existing dwelling footprint versus the proposed, where the red is the existing footprint. And so you can see obviously that location of the tree, and what we're proposing is just a very slight increase into that tree protection zone. As illustrated in the plan, you can see that the proposed exterior side yard setback is actually greater than that of the existing dwelling, and with an increase to the existing setback of 0.21 meters for approximately 60% of the wall, and then further setback to 0.087 meters for the remaining 40%. And with this proposed footprint, we were able to increase the gross floor area of the dwelling while impacting less of the site to do so, by allowing for a significant increase of open space with a more compact building footprint versus what the maximum footprint allowed under the bylaw would. We do have, we might be pressed for time, but there are additional photo that we submitted showing the existing condition of the boulevard, which is in our notice, sorry, as CA correspondence that was dated October 12th. Adam, I'm not sure if you could bring that up, dated October 12th, and it's the 3.5 meg file. Some of the required photos that we submitted. Just give you a better context. So if we go, thank you very much. If we go to figure 6, it's the very last photo in this file. You can see the condition of the existing boulevard, and the current fence line extends from essentially the front corner of the house, continues to the rear lot line, enclosing approximately 3/4 of that boulevard. And with the proposed siting of the dwelling, the new fence would sit along the property line, obviously, where it's required to be. And as such, we would argue that even though a portion of the new dwelling would be of a 2-story massing, that there would be less impact on the streetscape visually than the existing condition, and having that boulevard essentially restored with that current fence being removed. Although the chimney breast would project slightly in front of the side wall of the existing dwelling, this element is typically allowed as a permitted encroachment into the setback. I believe that the chimney is a significant traditional architectural feature that would bring a lot of character to the streetscape, which is obviously of particular importance for a corner lot dwelling. And again, just maintaining that existing tree, which we wish to do, would certainly help in that regard as well. And lastly, if we wanted to look at the flankage elevation proposed there, which is the north side elevation, you'd be able to see that it's well articulated. We believe that the roof line have been dropped to create an appearance of a 1.5-story massing for about 40% of that building face. That would be to mitigate the impact of the dwelling on the streetscape and its proposed setback, which again is proposed to be set back further than the existing dwelling. That probably conclude my presentation at this point, and happy to answer any questions any members may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reitz. I don't know how you were doing for time because I can't see the clock, so I have to rely on staff to weigh in on that. We have a letter of concern. Is there a mutual driveway here? The neighbor, I misinterpreted her letter. She's not concerned about traffic on the street. She's concerned about traffic passing through the common driveway. And obviously it's not a planning, that's not a planning issue. It's a building concern, not to, when you're building this thing, you obviously have to deal with the neighbors and the building department. But is there a mutual drive here?
No, there's not. The proposed driveway would just flank the rear neighbor's driveway, essentially side by side. But no, they're not shared, separated by the property line entirely.
Because then if you can see by her letter, which is the concern letter in her bookmark, she at 45, she says she talks about a common driveway. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Reitz, or if not, we'll hear from Mr. Choles. Okay, no one's piping up. I can't see hands. So Mr. Choles, welcome.
Good afternoon. I think it's yes, it is afternoon. I'll be referring to the objection letter of Judy Gibson of the LBNA during my presentation, as well as referencing the tree location diagram or map.
Staff, do we have the LBNA? I see we have the checklist. Do we have a letter of objection from Judy Gibson?
Yep, it's on its way right now.
40. Okay.
Okay, wasn't in our package. And you mentioned about the stand that we had a standalone urban forestry report, which again was going to be shared, but
it's the tree location map of the arborist that might not be necessary. We'll see. My name is Andy Choles. I live at 12 Jasmine Avenue in Long Branch. I'm a member and sit on the board of the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. We have a mission statement to protect, celebrate, and enhance the neighborhood of Long Branch. There's certainly some good points in this application for 40 23rd Street. The fact that the new home is, for the most part, on the footprint of the old home is certainly a good thing. It is a second story added to a home which will likely be a nice addition to the neighborhood. I was a little taken aback with the second page of the plans, which showed as of right build outlined in red. And I don't think that was the red that was shown this morning. I don't think I've ever seen such an inclusion on plans. I didn't know if this inclusion was to imply some sort of benevolence on the part of the applicant, showing us that the design could have been so much worse. I did wonder, but as I stated, the LBNA really does not have any issues with the build form as shown on the plan. With this application, we're mostly concerned about the trees on the property, and the agent's words were quite encouraging today. It would seem that inevitable that tree number 3, a Norway maple at the back corner of the new garage, will be removed. It is described as being in poor health and significantly altered. The applicant attributes this previous construction on the neighbor's property, and that may very well have been the cause of this condition. Thankfully, the magnificent red oak in the backyard is to be kept and protected during construction. That is a very good thing. I do remain concerned about tree number 1, the Norway maple, a city tree located close to the house. The tree is The tree location on the diagram from the materials on the AIC site shows it will have a TPZ zone around it, extends it well into the footprint of the house. I'm not sure how that will work, but the applicant expressed the likelihood that the tree will be removed, and he's modified that a little bit today. This 49 centimeter diameter at breast height city maple tree is healthy and has grown in that spot quite successfully with the present foundation in place. You had a very good picture of this on the that was shown earlier. That the one on our letter has the fence in front of it, but it was certainly evident from the earlier picture. From the plan, it looks like the new foundation will be built slightly back from the tree. I'm no engineer, but could that part of the old foundation not be left intact and supported in some way to allow this tree to live? Mature trees offer a plethora of benefits, both environmental and financial. Mature trees like the one shown will add tens of thousands of dollars in value to your home. Removing this tree would be much the same as removing the roof of your home. It would be a shame just to write off this tree because one thinks it's too much trouble to take adequate precautions to save its life. That statement that the tree might have to be removed, combined with the expression of reluctance to plant any trees in the boulevard because of a fence, I believe that's what the expression was, causes me for concern for the diminishing tree canopy in Long Branch. Then there's the 4 trees beside the driveway, which he already addressed on the tree location map. These don't appear on the plans for the house. This type of omission makes me nervous and fear they will be dispatched without any effort to save them. I'm relieved to hear that this might not be the case. These small trees may very well require thinning and pruning. Again, I'm not an arborist, but I do know that if you don't have little trees, you will never have big trees in the future. Referring to Ms. Gibson's letter on page 2, only 16.4% of the trees in Long Branch fall within the 30 centimeter diameter at breast height range. This maple is one of those trees, and those are diminishing. You've seen the chart on page 3. I think you have that displayed right now. Many times, the tree canopy in Long Branch is diminishing at an alarming rate. We have the dubious distinction of being in the lead for the most tree loss canopy, negative 43% since 2009. This at a time when the City of Toronto sets an objective of increasing the canopy by 40%. Careless development in Long Branch is steering us in completely the wrong direction. Finally, the red oak in the back corner of the backyard is to be protected during construction. Excellent. I'm a little worried about the excavation for the pool and the large lounge area afterwards. The digging of the hole may very well threaten roots. The material chosen for the rather large lounge area might also cause a tree undue duress. Might I suggest something more permeable than concrete? We are pleased the driveway has been removed and the softscaping increased in the front yard, but how much hardscape is being added to the back? Water absorption into the soil is very important for trees, vegetation, and also to reduce the likelihood of flooding. So that's really it. Really, the build form does not cause us a problem. The LBNA is concerned about the trees on the property. Of the 7 trees inventoried and shown on the location map, it appeared earlier that only 1 might remain after the build. The applicant is reluctant to plant more trees on the boulevard despite the chance that the health and a very large city tree will be destroyed. Where this home is located, you will be receiving an LBNA tree for free flyer at your door twice a year. Want to take advantage to green your property while not having to spend any more green? Seriously, save those trees. They are our future. Do I want this application refused? No, but I do want a more robust tree protection program included in this plan build. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Choles. Any questions for Mr. Choles, panel members? If not, we'll return it back over to Mr. Reitz for his rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say I'm not sure where this term reluctance to plant trees in the boulevard is coming from. That's never been mentioned by us whatsoever. And in fact, it's quite the contrary. Recently, my client said they'd actually like to request either 1 or more trees from the city be planted in the boulevard. So I'm not sure where, again, this reluctance to plant trees in the boulevard comes from. It's just simply not true. And initially, again, the large 50 centimeter diameter tree that everyone's most concerned about. Initially, we thought by virtue of required demolition that it would just render the tree, ultimately kill the tree. Now that we have a much better understanding of what we can can do going forward. We absolutely would like to maintain this tree and believe we can. Further to one of Mr. Chole's comments about maintaining the existing foundation wall, that's actually one of the primary things we discussed with our arborist. It would be very valuable to essentially maintain the existing condition and root structure. That tree would, in demolition, actually just leave that portion of foundation wall in place and essentially bury it. It would then act as a retaining wall for that root structure, not really changing the existing condition outside of a very small additional incursion into that TPZ from what currently exists. And conversely, it's kind of a win-win from our perspective, because not only would that keeping a portion of that foundation in place to protect the tree, it would obviously also protect the new foundation wall from being damaged by the roots as well. So we actually see that as a very positive option there. And then, of course, the use of helical piles can be used maybe for the small single-story projection at the rear of the dwelling. Of course, these are all things that between our arborists and in consultation with urban forestry and a complete submission to them that we would address there. So, and just lastly, sorry, with respect to the pool, there's what we're showing now, just a very minor incursion into that TPZ of the rear yard tree with some hardscape. We could easily eliminate that. That tree protection zone ultimately actually ended up being smaller than we initially believed, just because the tree diameter initially noted by the surveyors was incorrect, and it's actually smaller. So that was corrected by our arborist. And the excavation of the pool itself will not happen whatsoever with inside that TPZ. And of course, our clients absolutely want to maintain the health of that tree. It's very valuable to them, as you can imagine.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just looking, I don't see, there's no variance for like landscape space in the backyard.
That's correct. We're fully compliant.
You know, that lounge area that large lounge area outside the pool, I don't know, what that's proposed there, but obviously Mr. Scholes would prefer that be material that would allow water to penetrate as opposed to not. But I don't see the variance for that. So does anyone have any questions either for Mr. Scholes or for Reitz on his rebuttal or otherwise? And or is someone ready to say?
This was ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Questions? If there's no further questions, I'm ready to make a motion.
I have a quick question. Would it be possible for the committee to impose that as a condition that the hardscape be replaced in the rear yard with permeable pavers? A question of staff, I guess.
Yeah, it's not a variance. Is it it's not a variance.
Yeah,
it's not a variance. So we have, if it's not a variance, we have no.
It's not a variance, so in my motion, I would
say in how it's treated.
Well, staff, Barb.
Looking at the plans, I mean, it's tricky. If there's a pool, there will be some sort of hardscaping that they would probably want around there, and they may not want it to be permeable because then it shifts. So there's no area that's clearly identified on how to identify the area that you're looking at.
All right.
I don't think the committee has a right to increase the requirements of landscaping. They do meet the landscaping requirements, so I don't think we have that right to do that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Becky, you're about to make a motion. If no one else has any questions, Stan or Donald. Okay, go ahead.
Stands away. So Stanley
stands away. Right? Okay.
Stands away. So Stanley Bellissimo, I was encouraged to hear that the LBN has no problems with the building, because that's what we're really here for. So I'd like to make a motion regarding the building in terms of landscaping and trees saving. Also encouraged to hear that the applicant's going to try to keep that existing wall next to that tree. And I think that will help to save that tree. Although I think even with excavation, that tree's been there a long time, can probably take a bit of excavation around it. But I'll let forestry worry about that. So I'm going to move approval of the revised application. Variances 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 has been revised to 2.11 meters. And I'll add the condition of forestry so F1, F2, and they will hopefully deal with the whole tree issues. So I hope that can be resolved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Seconder for that?
I'm happy to second that.
Yeah, I
sorry.
Okay, I think
Miller, I think, is going to second that motion.
Okay, I don't have visuals on everyone, so,
I just,
okay.
Danny, did you include urban forestry condition 3 in your motion?
It should be 2 and 3, yes.
Oh, sorry, did I get the
I
wrong
didn't hear him
one?
say 3.
Oh, yes, so sorry, I wrote over top of
You
that.
keep cutting out, actually.
Clarifying. Well, thanks for
Okay.
clarifying that. I wrote
So,
over top.
yeah, I'll second it with the clarification that it's subject to urban forestry conditions 2 and 3.
Yeah, 2 and 3. I said 1 and 2. Sorry, thank you.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I think we should be encouraged. It sounds like the applicant wants to, for obvious reasons, want to maintain as many trees as they can. Okay, all in favor? I guess it's unanimous.
Unanimous.
4-0 with, obviously, I forgot that on a visual that Stan is absent for the rest of the morning. Okay, so we have 2 more applications. We'll go quickly. We can break for lunch. Item number 1833 Manitoba Street. It's an application to construct a new detached garage, and there is 1 variance, the coverage. We have nothing on file on this, nothing whatsoever. No concerns from citizens or city departments. That's all we have. And the speaker is Irina Gromadska, the owner of the property.
Yes, hello
Irina.
everybody. Thank you for your time. Yes, we would like to build a detached garage on our property, but the lot is so small that the proposed size of the garage covers more than allowed 33% of the land. So, but the house is relatively small. We have a semi-detached, so to keep all the tools and bikes along with the car in the garage, we need a decent sized garage. So we are not asking for two cars garage or anything. It's just normal. Even I should mention that our neighbors on both sides have the similar lots, and their garages are pretty much the same sizes, but they were built with the houses long time ago. So I hope that we will still be able to fulfill our dream.
Okay, ma'am, I just note you're only 18 square meters over. There's 1 variance. The garage itself complies. It's not too high or too big. And no neighbors, no staff have any concerns. So pretty straightforward. Members, any questions for Rena?
No. And I'm happy to make a motion. This is a very straightforward application, meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. I'm sorry, Mr. Bellissimo, did you have a question?
I was going to move approval because all the houses there have garages in the back, so I found it unfair. I'm going to move for approval. Go ahead, you move for it.
I'm going to move for approval. It does meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. It's minor in nature and move for approval.
Thank you. Seconded.
But no conditions.
Okay, seconded. Take Mr. Bellissimo. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you. Enjoy your new.
Mike. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, our last application of the morning, item number 1963 Longborough Avenue. It's we have a revised agenda page dated November 7th for the agenda, proceeding by way of waiver. There were 4 variances. Now we have 3. 2 of those have been revised. We have the revised plans and waiver. We have transportation. We have an email from the agent agreeing with planning to reduce the size of the garage. And so they have drawings and a new waiver. Transportation has no objection. And we have Metrolinx advisory and urban forestry condition number 2. And the speaker is Ian Cunha, agent for the applicant. Welcome, Mr. Cunha.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Ian Cunha representing the owners of 63 Longborough Avenue.
Yep.
We're asking permission to build a 2nd-story addition over the existing bungalow and a 2nd-story addition at the back with a conversion to be using the building as 2 units, and also to build a garage at the back for the 2 cars. There are 3 variances before us. 1, which is a technical variance for the house, and the other 2 variances are the garage. So if there's any questions that you need, I can answer them.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Cunha? It's basically a little bit over on the coverage and the west side lot line.
If there are no questions, Danny Bellissimo is ready for a motion. This is a corner lot, and so I found the impacts very minimal in terms of a negative impact on the neighbors. So I would like to move for approval of the variances of revised agenda page. That's 1, 3, and 4 as revised. And condition forestry, I believe is F1.
I'm happy to second that motion.
Forestry 2 I see on my sheet. I may be wrong.
I'm looking at the summary sheet from forestry.
Forestry 1. That's 1.
It's 1?
Yeah.
Okay. All in seconder for Mr. Bellissimo's motion.
Sorry, yes, urban forestry number 1, yes. Sorry, yes. I'm seconding that motion.
Thank you. All in favor? It's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Very good. So we're now adjourned for lunch. What time, Madam Secretary Treasurer, would you like us to resume?
Maybe 2:15 to allow for sound check.
Okay. We'll see everyone back here at 2:15. Thank you.
Have a good lunch.
If you guys are on for the afternoon session, just please make sure you come back for 1:45 for a sound check for the afternoon session. Thank you.